Great. You can all sit down. As you know, we are called at this time and place to be alive. Amen. In history, to engage in, I think, is the greatest battle of the United States of America. We are in a battle. If anyone denies that, I don't think they're aware of what is going on. Everything that is positive, that is good, that is wholesome, marriage, family, life, childhood, unborn, is under serious attack by this present administration. I don't have to go into details. You'll hear more about it. Just the life issue to save millions of unborn children from murder by abortion. What is our president going to do? The first thing he's going to do after the midterms: try to establish Roe versus Wade, codify Roe versus Wade. Our liberty is being stomped on. Critical race theory, gender confusion, obscene books out in elementary schools, teaching in our schools, justice, the total overreach of government with the mandatory vaccine, increase of crime, which we got to get the good judge elected as soon as possible. But God is the answer to these problems. In the scripture we learn, Jesus spoke to them when they were in the boat in a storm, and he said, "Take courage. It is I. Do not be afraid." Matthew 14:27. In Hebrews 12:2, we learn about, Jesus says, fix your eyes on Jesus. Don't put your eyes on anything else. It's going to be transitory. It's going to move. It's going to change. But fix your eyes on Jesus. May he give you the direction. Keep your eyes on the cross. We learn from Ephesians 6, draw your strength from the Lord and from his mighty power. And I say this to our dear judges, those who are running for office. It's not your own power. It's turning to God in your power. For as we learned from David and Goliath in Samuel 1, for the battle is the Lord's, and he shall deliver you into my hands. He told Goliath that. And we believe that the good people that are running, we need to totally stand up for them. They're standing in the gap. They're standing on the front lines for us. And they can tell you what it's like to stand on the front lines. You get attacked, right? You're in the front lines, you get attacked. There's no Judge could tell us about that, right, Judge? He could go into and so where's Matt O'Neill? You know, all of you, these candidates out there. But the Lord says the battle is the Lord's, and he shall deliver the evil one into our hands. And finally, for Mass today, Psalm 45, I read, the Lord is faithful in all his works. The Lord is faithful. We can't depend upon our own power, our own strength, our own intelligence, our own might, whatever it might be, because it is not good enough to fight the evil. We're not talking about, Democrat, Republican. We're talking about good against evil, life against death, standing up for this country that it survives. So let us lift this all up to the Lord. Father, Son, Holy Spirit, amen. Lord, we ask your blessing upon all these candidates who are standing in the gap for us, who are standing on the front lines, that you protect them, protect their families, and bless them, reward them with a victory for not only them, but a victory for our country to continue on as it has in the past for over 200 years, 275 years, to bring health and wealth and freedom into our country. In this way, ask Jesus, in total faith in you, that you will bless us and be with us and all these fantastic candidates we're going to hear from tonight that will indeed be victorious on Election Day. This way, ask in Jesus' holy name. Amen. Thank you so much. Let's lift it up for our candidates.
Leading us off tonight is the man that needs no introduction, Pat Dinkelhocker.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate the opportunity to be here. And Chrissy and Angie, thank you very much for allowing me to be here. I appreciate that. My name is Pat Dinkelhocker. I'm running for Judge, Court of Common Pleas, General Division for Judge Bob Ruhlman's spot. He's aged out, so I'm running for that. I think I've got 6 more good years to give to you, ladies and gentlemen, and that's what I'm going to try to do, okay? You will never hear the word activist, okay, or liberal in the same sentence with Pat Dinkelacker. That's just not going to happen, okay? It doesn't work that way. You know, experience, I was a judge for 29 years. I was a prosecutor before that. I know what it takes to be a good judge. I think I was a good judge for you all for those 29 years, okay? And I'm going to try my best to get back there, obviously. Look at it this way. It takes experience to be a good judge. And to be a good judge, you have to make decisions that are good for the people, not for some agenda or anything like that. And right now, as you know, or may not know, judges make decisions every day that affect your lives. Big decisions, life and death decisions. Okay, that's what judges do. Okay, and as you look around this country and you see what's going on with this country, the lawlessness, the brazen criminality or whatever, who does that go back to? Well, you can make a case, I guess, in some places, the Soros-bought prosecutors, okay? But who signs off on bails and bonds? Yeah, exactly right. It's not prosecutors, it's judges. Who signs off on sentences? That's judges. Who has judicial release power to let people out of prison? Because apparently that's the new thing to do now, is people go to prison, but the next judge says, well, I'm going to let them out of prison, okay? Judges do that, okay? So we got to be careful with the judges, okay? And let me just ask you this, okay? In 2020, let me set it up first. 2020, 9 out of 13 Republican candidates lost, including myself, okay? Elections have consequences. Elections have consequences. Do you feel that you are safer now going to church, going to school, going to wherever than you were before the 2020 election? Anybody? Does anybody feel like victims of crime are treated better now, better than defendants, or even equal to defendants now than they were before the 2020 elections? Do you feel, and this is kind of scary, I'm old, okay? For the first time in my life, and maybe you could join me with this, do you feel that perhaps your civil liberties are at risk because of what judges are doing? I think you have to answer yes to that, okay? Judges take an oath. It's a pretty simple oath. I've taken it a number of times, okay? You follow the law, you seek justice for everybody, not just those on an agenda, not just defendants, okay? But for police officers, for witnesses, for everybody that comes in front of you. And you treat everybody with dignity and respect. That's what a judge is supposed to do. And if I'm reelected, that's what I will do again, as I did for the 29 years I was a judge. Real quick, on a personal note, I lost in 2020. I don't like to lose. Okay, I coached basketball at our Lady of Lords for a long time. I have 4 brothers. Everything was competition in life, okay, which was great, but I hate to lose, okay? I didn't like losing, but I thought, you know what, 11 years as a prosecutor, 29 as a judge, I had a pretty good career. So I'm kind of sitting back, and then Judge John Seavey, who's on the same ballot as me, and by the way, my colleagues on that ballot, they need your help too, all the way to those Supremes. I'm allowed to say this, the Supremes need your help. But anyway, I forget where I was now, but the Lady of Lords or wherever, okay? I don't like to lose. Thank you. Thank you. It's been a long trail. It's been a long trail, okay? I don't like to lose, okay? But Judge Seavey appointed me as magistrate, so I went back for a year and a half, and I did a magistrate thing, domestic relations, doing nothing but domestic violence. And I thought, okay, I'll end up, I got the 9 little grandkids, I'll just kind of move on. And then guess what happened? Probably saw the same things that you saw, okay? But I start off, first of all, I'm from the courthouse. I know everybody in the courthouse. Everybody's coming to me. You would not believe, Pat, what's going on. They're doing this. And I don't want to be the whiny guy and say, okay, yeah, because I'm not there. No. But I listened. And then I started seeing what's going on with the parents. Remember those brave parents that stepped up and said, wait a minute, we're not going to take this for our kids. What they're doing is not right. We're stepping up. At great personal risk, they stood up. Victims of crime did the same thing. And then the good Lord works in strange ways. Would you agree with me on that? I think the good Lord does. Here's a little thing. Like I said, I was ready to step back and call it a career. And then I was asked by the FOP to address their police memorial in May of 2021. You ever been down there on Fountain Square? Really a neat thing. Sea of blue out there. Blue with the white hats, spouses, kids running around. And I'm standing up there at that podium. Okay, I guess I'm supposed to be standing here at the podium. Standing at the podium. And I making a speech that, you know what, we can't put up with that. Remember what was going on? Defund the police. Police lives don't really matter. You can hit police, shoot them, whatever, it doesn't matter. And I'm saying, no, we're not putting up with that. That's not the way to go. So I'm talking the talk. All right, and I got off that podium and I thought, okay, Pat, you've talked the talk. You're watching these other people. And then it hit me. The good Lord, I think, again stepped in and said, you know what, Pat, you got 9 little grandkids. Aren't we all supposed to make, when we move on, aren't we supposed to leave behind a better place for our grandkids, a place where they're much safer? Isn't that what we're supposed to do? And I thought to myself, okay, all right, I hear the question, what can you do, Pat? I thought, well, you know what? I know how to be a good judge. I can go back and help the community and help people by being a judge. So I am in this to win this. I've worked my rear end off, ladies and gentlemen. I want to win this thing, not just for me. I'll be fine if I don't win, okay? But I think I can help all of you. I think I can help our community. So one last thing, I should say this. 42 years ago, I was out there on that dance floor. This is where, when I got married, we had our reception. So that's kind of cool. That's kind of cool. So I'm back. I've been here a zillion times since that, but the Elsessers took care of me 42 years ago, and they're still taking care of me. But with that, if you can't remember the name, I forgot. I told somebody I could do. Issue 1. I know I'm running out of time. Sorry. Issue 1. Vote for issue 1. I'm allowed to say it. Please, even if you don't vote for me, vote for issue 1. Safety of the community. Judges have to have the authority to use safety of the community when they're setting a bond. If not, your lives, you're in danger. So please vote for issue 1, okay? George will talk about that a little bit more, but please do that. Last thing, if you can't remember the name, Dinklocker, think Dink, vote Dink. And this is my last thing. I'll look each one of you in the eye and tell you this. Ladies and gentlemen, I will not let you down. I will not let you down. Okay? God bless all of you. God bless America. Any questions? Okay.
Does anybody have any questions for Pat?
Yeah, thanks for rerunning. Thanks for rerunning.
Thank you all very much. Thank you very much.
Next on the schedule was Jenny Kilgore. She's running for the school board. Unfortunately, she had some car trouble, so she wasn't able to make it tonight. So in her place, we have George Brenneman, and he will be speaking about a couple of the issues coming up.
Thank you very much. I'm going to try and be quick, but this is important. For any of you who didn't believe it in the past that elections have consequences, 2020 taught us that, right, in spades. Not only did we lose all the judges and all their experience, we now have record inflation, record people leaving the jobs. It's just incredibly crazy out there. 2022 is an important year, and I want to talk about some of the issues and candidates that you don't hear much about. So if you've got your absentee ballot, it's 4 pages. I'm going to talk about the last 2, okay? The issues and the judges. So as Pat mentioned, we have to win these judicial races, and in particular, Sharon Kennedy, Pat Fisher, Pat DeWine, Supreme Court. We can win every single House, every single Senate, all of the statewide offices. If we lose any one of those 3, nothing matters. The Supreme Court of Ohio has taken a hard left turn in the last 2 years. They are why we had to have an August election. They are why we have issue 1 and 2 on the ballot. Issue 1, let's talk about the issues. Issue 1 is a state constitution that you must consider public safety in setting bonds. So as Pat just said, the Supreme Court basically said you have to set a bond so that they can actually get out. Make it affordable. So murderers are being let on the street. Violent offenders are being let on the street because of that Supreme Court decision. Voting yes on issue 1 stops that. Issue 2 is kind of similar. The Ohio Supreme Court is hinting that illegals should be allowed to vote in local elections. Do we believe this? Non-citizens voting in City of Cincinnati, Green Township elections. Issue 2 is a constitutional amendment to make that illegal in the state of Ohio. So vote yes on 1 and 2. So what does that leave after that? The rest of these issues are all taxes. And they love to tell you that, for instance, issue 3, Cincinnati Public Schools will not raise your taxes. But voting no on issue 3 will save the average person $600 a year. $600 for a school that can barely get anyone out of it. Cincinnati public schools are like the worst in the state. Issue 5, Northwest local school districts. Just 3 years ago, they passed a 28% increase, 28%. They're now coming back 3 years later and asking for another 14% on top of that for 38 years, not 10, 38. So that one there will save you on average, what do we put here? So there's a little thing on your table. That's what I keep referencing. It'll save the average person $410 a year to vote no on issue 5. Issue 8 is a hospital renewal. That's another $104 if you vote no on that one. Mental health is an insidious one. It is a renewal and a 30% increase. And many of you know Dan Reginault. He's the guy that started Empower You. Dan had did a Freedom of Information Act request on the county for what's going on with that mental health levy. In the last 2 years, they spent over $1 million on diversity, equity, and inclusion. This is mental health. So do we want to give them 30% more in taxes to do more of this silliness? So that's issue 9. Issue 10 is a renewal for senior services, and I know a lot of people like to vote for that kind of a thing. It's only $83 a year. The problem is they keep putting these side issues that they know you will vote for so that they can spend the general fund on other things that you would never allow. We've got to stop them at some point. If you look also, there's another one, issue 7, Little Miami Fire. Issue 18, Green Township Fire. The Little Miami one is a tiny amount of money. It's only 1.75 mils, so it's like $50. Green Township's pretty substantial. It's about a $300, $400 a year increase in your Green Township. Now it is for police and fire. That is something that townships are supposed to do, but at least consider that. The bottom line is, each one of you out there, if you would vote no on every single one of these tax levies, you would save close to $800 a year forever. $800 in a time where inflation is taking at least that much from you every month anyway. So I think it's important to look at these in detail. The sheet we hang out here, as I like to do, these are pure facts. I didn't put any opinions on any of these. It's just telling you how much they are and how much it's going to cost you. You can look it up to verify it, but like I said, I try to stick to whatever is a verifiable fact, not an opinion. That's what that is. So I encourage you, A, vote for the judges. Take that pink sample ballot. The Supreme Court now does say Republican and Democrat. The appeals court says Republican, Democrat, but the other ones do not. So take your pink ballot, make sure you vote through all 4 pages. Your life depends on it. Thank you very much.
Isn't it nice when somebody does your homework for you? And the cool thing is you can take this little slip with you, kind of like those pink slips, to the polls with you, because you have facts with you. So thank you very much for that, George. We really do appreciate that. Miss Nita, would you like to come up and talk a little bit about what's going on with this beautiful sign up here? She works with Dan Reginault with Empower You, and also a whole bunch of fun stuff.
Okay, should I use that? Can everybody hear me? Well, first of all, before I get started, I want to comment on something George said. Joe Dieters did his Empower You for us a couple weeks ago, and somebody in the audience asked him, with all these elections, everything going on, what do you think is the most important election in Ohio? And he said, Supreme Court, Sharon Kennedy. So George is absolutely right. And I would like to talk about a project now that started from Empower You, Ohio. Is everybody here familiar with Empower You? Well, if you're not, I can't talk about it because I don't have enough time. But Empower You, Dan Reginault started that, and he started this initiative called In God We Trust, and you should have this on your table. And he found out that someone in Texas called him and said there was a law in Texas that we have in Ohio that if you donate a sign like this with the flag and the motto "In God We Trust" to the public school system in each district, they have to put it up. And so his goal is to get one of these signs, I don't want to mess that up, in all 614 school districts. Thank you. And I'm really very excited about this project, because we're always fighting the left and we're trying to stop them. But this is something we can do, and I'd like to see them stop us. So I like to be on the offensive for a change. And this is very easy to do. There's something on your table that explains it to you. You can go to the website, choose any of these flags. This one's really nice. My favorite is the one that says "In God We Trust" in the middle. It's really rustic looking. And Dan will frame it like that for you and send it to the school. And also along with that, he sends an 8x5 and 11 thing of, now I'm losing it. Dwight D. Eisenhower is the one who made this motto. And he sends along with the school a picture of this. And if you look at this picture here on your handout, that was a picture from King's School District that they sent to Dan after they put it up with a thank you letter. So I'm just really, really excited about this project. And the idea behind it was not really religion. It was history. That's why they have to put it up. This is history. This is our motto, whether they like it or not. This is our motto. So I really feel like this is a great project. And the flags are kind of pricey, but they're framed, they're beautiful. And a lot of people are going together, like 2 or 3 people, whatever. And we've had some people put them in a lot of schools. But I urge you to look at this, and I also urge you to tell your friends, because this is something everybody can do. And if we got it in every school district, wouldn't that just be amazing? I just think that would be great. So anyway, I think that's all I have to say. Does anybody have any questions? No? Okay. Thank you.
Next, we have Tom Brinkman in the house. So I have a question for all y'all. How many of you guys are voting day up? Okay. How many of you are taking 5 friends with you? You think I'm kidding? We got one person that's going to bring 5 friends. All right, I was going to say how many are bringing 10, but I guess you need to bring as many friends with you as possible. Otherwise, we will not have a red wave, folks. So without further ado, Mr. Tom Brinkman.
Thank you very much. A few things. George did a great job on going through those levies. Don't ever vote for a levy. Just vote no, 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 no. There's very few things that they can't come up with the money. We could have designed vote yes on 1 and 2. Those are the state constitutional amendments. We've got to pass those. But number 9, we're especially calling out because it is such an enormous increase. And I can tell you as a state legislator, we have given hundreds of millions of dollars to county governments for mental health, to school districts for mental health. They have so much money they can't hire enough people to spend what we've given them. So to give them another 30% is absolutely ridiculous. Along with that, the county is swimming in money. They're spending $750,000 on Blink. Is that a core function of county government? They have a little bus that runs around, the 513 bus. Is that a core function of county government? They spent, I think, $3 or maybe $6 million helping people identify people who are having problems with their rent. Is that a core function of county government? And then in the next 4 years, they're going to deal with the Bengals Stadium deal. We got three bozos down there that don't know what they're doing. Now, I know we have Matt O'Neill up here running, he follows me, but what I would do if I was a county auditor, and I would be calling them out on this stuff. I would be saying no to an increase on mental health, because I have the background that knows what the state is spending. And it wouldn't have gone on the ballot. It might have gone on as a renewal, but it wouldn't have gone on with an increase. And I tell some of my supporters, usually the people I'm trying to wrangle some money out of, what I plan on doing is being the fourth commissioner. Because I'm going to have the facts and figures and numbers that they need to rely on when they do silly stuff like that. And instead of letting it go, I'm going to call it out and say they got plenty of money. They don't need this increase because we've got to stop it. Our county is too many taxes, too many special levies. It's ridiculous. Now, I'm currently a state representative. I've been here before. I'm in my 16th year. I vote against all these taxes. I try to get rid of regulation. My really big claim on the regulation was I got help. When I got elected, we got rid of e-check. Remember e-check? Some of the young people don't remember what e-check was. That was a pain in the ass. And it was a fraud. It was an absolute fraud. And then when they sold all those e-check stations, it turned out the people who owned the stations all had been big contributors to George Voinovich and Bob Taft. And so they owned the building and then they could go sell it. So these things are, I think there's like 100 agencies that suck off the mental health levy. Go look at their balance sheets. The CEO and all those agencies make six figures. And then they have people on the board. It's just disgusting. But anyway, I got off track. So I'm running for county auditor. Dusty Rhodes is retiring. I don't think it's voluntary. And by that I mean he was kicked out of the Democrat Party. And after what he saw happen to Sheriff Neal, where he lost 3-1 in the primary, he knew his days were numbered. Dusty will turn 82 on December 6th this year. I will turn 65 on December 6th. We share the same birthday. So that's interesting. You know, there's three things. We'll back up. There's 130 things that the county auditor does. And many of them don't get into play unless some disaster happens, you know, financial emergencies in Laughlin, things like that. But the three things that affect you, number one, the appraisals. We got to get rid of these Zillow appraisals. You're on a street and some house down the street sells for an ungodly amount of money because somebody's moving in from Chicago and they're throwing in the money, a lot of money at the house. All of a sudden your rates go up because they look at a satellite and they look down there and say, oh, well, they should all be that price. And then we all suffer. We need to bring back real appraisals. And we can do it and actually save money hiring people from Hamilton County, Cincinnati, to do the appraisals instead of sending a check to a lockbox in Springboro that then goes to a company over in Indianapolis. Okay, so that's one thing that I want to do. I'll even say this. I tried to refinance when the interest rates were 2.5. Dusty had my home appraised at, I think, 435 or 467. I couldn't swing the loan. I had borrowed from my house to put my kids through college. Some got educated and some got indoctrinated. But anyway, I did that, and now I wanted to get the lower rate. Well, they sent a real appraiser out, and he compared rates around the community, not on my street, and he appraised it at 640. I could swing the loan. Your home is your most important asset. I mean, sometimes people have businesses and stuff, but if you have a home, that's your important asset. I want it to be valued correctly so I can use it for estate planning, to borrow from if I need to, but it should be appraised correctly. So that's number one thing I intend to do. Number two, weights and measures. That's the responsibility of the county auditor. I'm not saying there's any problem, but you want to make sure that when you put in a gallon of gas in your car, it's a gallon of gas. You don't want somebody playing with the scale when you buy a pound of meat at the butcher counter. You want to make sure that when you're doing the self-checkout, which all these places are moving more and more, so they get rid of folks, workers, or the ones that don't work, you scan through and that UPC is correct. But that's what the county auditor does. I want to make sure, and I'm going to double down on that. The third thing, is kind of weird one, is when you think about it, people have more dogs than they have children. And the animal control situation's a mess created by the county commissioners. They fired SCPA and hired somebody else, and they're not doing it right, and it's a mess. What can the county auditor do? The county auditor collects the license fees. I was sitting with, and I hope he's not here tonight because he's a big guy, a trustee in Whitewater Township. He was at the Burgers and Brews event, and he said, I got 2 dogs, I don't get a license for them. And I said, his wife was kicking him, don't tell him that. And I said, well, I'm not going to track you down, but why? He said, it's too inconvenient. I said, well, I think you can go online. He said, I don't want to do that. I want to do it at the checkout counter when I'm buying $90 of dog food every month. So what we need to do is, we need to make sure it's at the checkout counter, PetSmart, those places. Just like, the post office sells rolls of stamps at Kroger's and, Costco and places like that. So let's make it easy for people. It's $19, but it would help generate the funding that would help take care of the stray pet population, which a lot of people care about, although Cincinnati's doing pretty good. I'm going to finish with saying this, and take a few questions, is I am not endorsed by Dusty Rose. He has endorsed my woke, pro-abort, anti-gun, pro-tax opponent. It's shameful. I don't know why he chose to do that. I think it's because I ran against him in 2010 and he holds a grudge. And that's fine. Everybody's allowed to hold a grudge if they want. I always say damn the Yankees, so when they play. But, and actually he's a fan of the Yankees. I hadn't thought about that. That's his big team because he's from Syracuse. But anyway, the point is, I don't know if she's going to get it out there and talk about her Dusty endorsement. I just don't know. Because interestingly, my wife had a stroke on March 27th, and I've been caring for her. And my opponent got spinal cancer right around the same time. So I don't know what kind of vigorous campaign she's running. I'm trying to do the best I can. But she might put that endorsement out there. But if you see that, I really want you to think twice and not say, well, Dusty, he's good on some of these issues and stuff like that. Because she is not. She just isn't. And I'll give you the best example is we passed a budget last time, and it had tax cuts, it flattened the tax code, we had all these great things, but it had tiny restrictions on abortions in Ohio. 13 legislators, Democrats, voted against it. She was one of them. So, she's just driven on a woke agenda, and that's very important. Finally, I said there'd be one, but there's a second one. I've been in 18, this is my 18th election. And I won 7, of the 17 previous, I won 12, lost 5. And when you're in this game long enough, you kind of see trends. You kind of see the flavor. Is it a wave? Is it cutting against you? Is it cutting for you? Which groups are against you? When Trump was going, people didn't like his mean tweets. We kind of lost the suburban women. In my district, that was tough. We got back the blue-collar people, but there weren't many blue-collar people in the 27th district. So I had to weave a way through that and win. I really think that the trend is going our way. The news media is downplaying it. They're trying to pump up an issue, abortion, which is 7th on most people's agenda. They don't want to, you heard Nancy Pelosi, she don't want to talk about inflation. We need to change the conversation. They don't want to talk about the crime rate. What, 3 people killed last week in Cincinnati? I mean, it's ridiculous. They don't want to talk about it. So there's a wave coming. But what I want to make sure we do, and what Angela says, taking people to the polls, we need to maximize this wave. They maximized it 2 years ago, and even 4 years ago. We need to make sure we get everyone that we can possibly get out. Because we need to pull all of our judges who don't have R's behind their name, like Judge Dinkelhocker. We need to pull them over. And we pull them over by talking to our friends and bringing up issues like the inflation, like the crime. So anyway, I don't know if I have time for a question or two.
Yes.
Okay. Any quick questions that I can answer? Anything? Well, I did a great job, I guess. So, but I will be here till the end, so if anybody has a specific question, but please, try to pull anybody you can in who wouldn't normally vote and get them there and to do it. Yes, sir.
I have a question. What is your opinion of going to paper ballots and hand counts at the precinct level and then secure those ballots in a box? Even in Perla with the voting machines that we know are already pre-programmed with a predetermined outcome. What's your philosophy?
I'm fine with that. I introduced a bill that would require them to do a hand count on one election after every election, so they could pick at random. So they would, at the end of this election, they would have to at least hand count one election.
Ballots or votes?
The ballots.
What? Not the votes.
Well, I'm not talking the number of ballots, I'm talking the votes on one election. So they could randomly pick and do county commissioner, let's say, or what something countywide to prove that what the machine, to me, this was a first step. And I introduced this back in like 2008 because I saw this stuff coming. I do believe there is a lot of funny business going on. And I know, and I'll give you a final example. Dan Unger, does anybody know him out in Coleraine Township? Okay, he worked at a precinct 2 years ago in Lincoln Heights. And people come in there, and it's mostly African American, and they come in there and say, I'm ready to vote. And he said, well, I'm sorry, Mr. Smith. You've already voted. Well, no, I didn't. I said, well, it says here they sent you a ballot. Well, I didn't do that. I want to vote. Well, you got to vote provisional. Okay, so they voted. 42 out of 130 people came in there thinking they were going to vote that day, and someone had asked for a ballot for them. He wrote, what's he supposed to do as an election person? He writes it in the book. What happened? Nothing. Okay? Next person, Marlon McCormick. He worked at the Board of Elections. He lives on Observatory. He helps me with my campaign. He's out there looking at the drop boxes, getting them out before the election. He is looking at the Norwood Plaza, well, it's not Norwood Plaza, but whatever that plaza is right across the street. People are getting ballots. They're coming back through, dropping 2 in at a time. Remember, you're only supposed to drop in your families. And he says to the head of the Board of Elections, look at what is going on over there. And her response was, oh, we can't take care of anything off our property. That's not our responsibility. So here you have the harvesting and the planting of the ballots. I know 2 people, 2 honorable people, many of you know it, happening right now, and that's what they let happen. So don't tell me there isn't any funny business that's going on. Now, what do I think happened? I think those people in Lincoln Heights was probably going to vote Democrat anyway. But would they have sat there and voted in 30 little circles when they're they're basically elderly and they got to stand there? And our people don't do that. They rush in, they do some of the votes and do them. But this way the Democrats get all 30 of them filled in. And then they put them in the box for them. And they're doing it. Now this year I don't think they got a great operation. That's why I think we're going to have a good wave. But I'm telling you, they do it. And we don't do anything about it. That's why I don't want to extend these drop boxes. If anything, we should shut them down and have people go inside if they want to turn them in.
A gentleman named Clinton Curtis is a whistleblower, a Democrat, that designed a method to rig the voting machine, a predetermined outcome in the computer source code. He's given testimony here in Ohio. What can we do here in Ohio through you to take a look at the computer software code that he designed to predetermine election before we even go to go into the election midterms and the presidential election?
Well, I know we have an election integrity bill in the House and Senate. I don't know where that stands. We're only going to have 5 more days in session.
Does that include taking a look at the source code?
I have no idea. It wasn't my bill, and I'm more than happy to do it. But with 5 days, we're probably looking at the next General Assembly. I wish we weren't, and I'll be out.
We can do anything. With COVID, we did it within a matter of days. We made huge changes in the 2020 election within a short period. But I'm going to encourage you to take swift and decisive action. But of course, encourage everybody to vote and to outvote that fraud.
So that's right.
Until
Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, West Siders, our next speaker is Matt O'Neill. This gentleman is running against a formidable opponent. I'm sure you guys are familiar with the name recognition with the billboards and the signs around here, Smitherman. But this gentleman here, he's one of us. He has the same values that we do, and we need your help, West Siders, to spread the word and share his name. Get him out there, please.
I really happy to come here. I really wanted to come last month to hear Randall Terry, but we had another campaign event, so I'm glad to finally get here during the season. I've heard a lot of good things. Matt O'Neill, I was born on the west side, lived 25 years in Green Township, 25 years in Oakley Hyde Park, 5 in the Northeast, and 5 in Northern Kentucky. So I've lived all around the county. Academically, went to graduate visitation, St. Xavier High School, Miami in finance and accounting, MBA at Xavier, and earlier in my career, I was a CPA. I've worked mainly in higher education and currently at a publicly traded DME company, durable medical equipment, wheelchairs, power mobility, and stuff like that. So I've worked in very large operations, and the county budget is around $320 million, so about $400 raised off everybody in the county. So, that type of budget is very similar to the type of budgets I've managed before. So what's most important to me, I love to talk that George had about the school taxes. On my card, which I've tried to give to many tables here, I'm the only person out here running in this race talking about tax cuts. The Hamilton County, as you heard earlier today, does have a large surplus. They have a large surplus because when the Union Terminal building was complete, it was turned into a continuing part of the county budget. So it's like if you say, hey, I want money to buy a car, and somebody buys a car, and then they take the rest of the money and go on a European journey, you're like, well, I didn't really want to pay for that. So to me, that's a bait and switch tax increase. So that's a big deal to me. And the other thing that I think is really horrible is the fact that the bus tax passed and it was jiggered together with the city income tax from 2.1 to 1.8. And along with that, 30% of the money or so going to roads. So to me, those things that sounds like Nancy Pelosi in Congress. Let's just jam it all together, read it and what's in it. That to me is not how it should be. And I don't think that the bus tax would have passed on its own. So one of the things I would like to do is separate that bill out and have people vote for it as this for the bus and this for the roads. So the other thing, the stadium is coming up and the lease will be up in 4 years. And last time when this thing came up, you didn't get a say on it. The county commissioners, which were all Republicans at that time, passed it. And then the people got the ballot issues together and put it on the ballot where it passed. And then the Bengals got a very favorable lease, the most favorable lease in NFL history. I read about books about this tall and wrote an MBA paper and got the best MBA paper about studying all the things about the lease and how bad it was and how NFL teams have to kind of piggyback with an arena or a baseball stadium or something because having a building in use 8 Sundays a year doesn't cut it for your investment. So, whether or not people want the Bengals, that's up to them. My promise to you is it will go to the voters. So most important to me is that, I'm endorsed by Cincinnati Right to Life. My mom worked 28 years. Thank you. My mom worked 28 years after teaching 29 years at Cincinnati Public Schools, and the last 28 of her career after that was as a counselor at the Prating Center East. And next Tuesday, she was supposed to get an award for all her years of service, but for reasons I'll get into later, she's not going to be able to attend. But anyway, that's very important to me in that. So I'm running against a person who has a lot of name recognition as having been on city council for a number of years. One of the things that his camp does, I'm not accusing him of anything, just his camp, where my name is, some of their crew pastes his name over my name and sends it out to their friends. So it's deception. And to me, I don't want to vote for somebody who's deception. And I like to get out there, view if somebody who's thinking about that, where their team results, on trying to deceive people to get their vote. So I think another thing that has frustrated me in the campaign is that not all the Republicans, I'm endorsed by the Republican Party, but there's many Republicans who, are on the other side, particularly at Price Hill Chili. So that's rather frustrating to me that once you get endorsed, that you still have Republicans who are on, the fence or neutral or voting for your opponent. So that's kind of discouraging. But I go through. I'm here to represent the Republicans and the values of the Republican Party, and that's what's important to me. And I think that's what's important to a lot of people in this room. So, I have a great career, and it's very difficult for somebody who works at a publicly traded company to go out there and find the time to do campaigning with people who've known all the people for 10 or 20 years or so on and so forth and rattle off a list of endorsements. So, I don't really want to do that. I know the people that really do support me, certainly Tom Brinkman, Dan Unger, if you heard before. Dan Unger ran the levy review. He was running that levy review for 11 years. This crap you're getting now on these levies would not have happened under Dan Unger. If I'm elected, Dan Unger will be coming back to run the tax levy review committee, and you won't be seeing these 34% tax increases on all that stuff. So, those are the most important things to me in my campaign. So I kind of want to close a little bit. It's been a very difficult time. My dad taught me many times, and Matt, you're always talking politics, back it up by running someday. So I backed it up, and I was so hoping that my dad would be able to get here to election day, but he passed last night. So, it's very tough. So, and I'm here, and I think it's important to get out there and still meet the people. So, next week will be very difficult for our family, as that'll be the funeral. So, but anyway, thank you, everybody. Glad to meet you and everything. Okay. Any questions? Yes.
When people ask me whether they should vote for Smith or yourself, what can I tell them in one or two sentences as why you're so much better than Smith?
I'm the only one who's talking about tax cuts, overspending. I'm the only one who's endorsed by Right to Life. Those are the two most important ones. I'm not surrounded by people or haven't worked around people who've spent a lot of time in jail or heading to jail. 3 of his people, 3 out of 5 are on their way to jail, where he worked for 8 years. 5 people, of the others, including some of the first group, have been cited to court for their violation of the texting all the deals behind the scenes. To me, that's a sign of corruption. He's lucky he didn't get involved in that, but if you're around everybody who's bending the law, you're probably right at the end. And so what did we see in this campaign? Let's have our staff jigger the balance and take the GOP part off and send it out to people. So to me, those are signs that, that's a career politician. I'm not a career politician. When you're in a publicly traded company, you have to deal with SOX, Sarbanes-Oxley Act. You don't cheat on SOX. You don't want the SEC coming into your office. So, those things are the most important differences between he and I. There is one thing we are similar on, and that is we both say the same thing regarding the Bengals stadium lease. But other than that, I'm the Republican, he is not. And so.
When you were saying you weren't surrounded by criminals or whatever, you're talking about the Gang of 5?
I'm talking about the Gang of 5, plus that's one instance, but P&G, Sittenfeld, his conviction. I'm also talking about, obviously,
Insinuating that Chris Simmons was involved.
I specifically said he was not. I said he was not brought into that.
Problem. I wanted to make
No, I did not say he was involved. I said he's lucky he was not involved in that because.
No, he wasn't lucky. He wasn't because he has integrity.
So.
But it was where it was working.
All right. Well, thank you, everybody.
Could we quiet down the room a little bit for those that are trying to listen? If we have any conversations, you can take them out in the hallway just for those that are having difficulty hearing. And then our next speaker is Adam Kohler. He's running for Ohio State House Representative of District 24, and he's a lifelong West Sider.
All right, guys, thanks a lot for having me today. I like being around my West Side people. I grew up in Price Hill, and my wife's getting sick of hearing politics. So it seems like you guys are interested in it. So I get to spill all my knowledge and all my nonsense on you. But yeah, Adam Kaler. I grew up in Price Hill. I went to Carson, went to North Avondale, 5th grade until I graduated. I went to school for creative performing arts. I'm in the Lion's Den. I'm in District 24. 1971, the Democrats have been running my district. No Republican was going to run at all. Jim Burns, I know some of you guys probably know Jim Burns. He called me up. He said, Adam, so we don't have anybody running in 24. So will you run in 24? I own 3 businesses. Somebody had to do it. Somebody had to do it. I have a big problem with socialism. This is one of the main reasons I'm running, guys. I grew up in poverty, single mom. My dad was an alcoholic, drug addict, wasn't around, left us when we were kids, didn't pay any child support. So it was my mom and my grandma primarily that raised my brother and I. And a lot of times, you know, we moved around. Rosemont Avenue, we lived on West 8th, we lived on Sunset twice. We lived on Evers, Beach off of Evers, or Evers off the beach. And we didn't have a lot. You know, we didn't have any furniture in our house. We had a lawn chair in our living room, plastic with the straps. That was our couch. We didn't have a TV, so there wasn't no reason to be in the living room. We had mushrooms growing out of our carpet because the guy upstairs decided to put a washing machine in his dining room. And we lived in the basement down on Montana Avenue. Mushrooms growing out of our carpet, so we had to leave that place. I mean, I've seen the worst of it. Crime, growing up in Price Hill in the 90s, all the gang activity and everything. I've been jumped more times than I can count on 2 hands. I got jumped at Rapid Run Park sled riding by 15 people one time. I was at summer school at Westside, 7:30 in the morning, get jumped by a couple people. And the crime's just out of hand, guys. And all I hear from the left is how we're supposed to feel sorry for everybody. We're supposed to feel sorry for the decisions people make. And these are decisions. I grew up with a lot of these people. They make terrible decisions. And we're supposed to pay the price for that. We're supposed to have, bail reform now, and people just go out on the street and just do whatever they want? Murderers? Guys, just the other day, my friend's house in Delhi got ran into by 4 15-year-old kids who carjacked an immigrant woman up at Target. Right at the street in my district. That is my district still. What is going on? 15-year-old kids, guys, carjacking people at gunpoint. They run into my buddy's house, bust his wall in his front yard, jump out of the car with the gun, and the police are like, put down the gun, put that. His wife and kid are in the house. These guys, 15, just waving a gun around. I'm not running for my health. I'm running because we had a bullet come through our bedroom window. We live in Mount Auburn now. My wife bought a house there about 10 years ago. Loth Street. Bullet come through our bedroom window. We found a dead body on Christmas Day in the pond that's emptied out. We heard, it sounded like there was a war going on the day before that. And we called the cops. No, there's nothing, nothing going on. It's crazy. 2 people murdered behind my house during COVID, selling drugs in an open lot. Matter of fact, I was putting up one of my signs yesterday, and they say to me, these guys have been out there since I was a kid. I was going to school and over the Rhine in the 80s and 90s when nobody wanted to go down. How many people used to tell their kids, don't go downtown, don't go over the Rhine, don't go to the West End, right? I was walking around there, hanging out, looking the way I look, right? It was not safe. But these kids, I'm putting up my sign on Vine Street. I own an empty lot on Vine Street. It was a crack house, by the way. I had it torn down. I bought it off one of my neighbors for $10,000. Cost me $2,500 to have it cleaned out. By the way, I called Jump King. They come out. They didn't want to do it because they sent out a bunch of kids. They said, well, there's heroin needles. We can't clean it out. I call some guy, 79 years old from Price Hill. He comes out with his daughter and granddaughter, cleans it out for $2,500, no problem. No problem. Because it's West Side, right? People work, right? We work over here. Then I had the house torn down, so the drug dealers don't think they like me for that. Because it's a trap house. That's where the crackheads go and they shoot up right there behind my house. So I'm putting my sign up there yesterday, and they say, hey, is that you running? I talked to these guys for about 30 minutes about real estate investing, about entrepreneurship, about how it's not productive for them to be out here doing nothing. Then I told them, because I'm sure, just like me, they were told to vote Democrat. You're poor, you vote Democrat, right? That's the scenario. You're poor, you vote Democrat, because Republicans don't care about poor people. right? I said to him, look, I'm a capitalist. If you're poor, you can't buy my stuff. They're like, that makes sense. I said, also as a Republican, I don't want my taxes going up. If I've got to pay for you because you're poor, my taxes go up. They're like, well, that makes sense too. I said, what the Democrats are lying to you? They've been lying to you in this district since 1971. People are waking up. I'm telling you guys, people are waking up. Folks like Kanye, and I know there's a lot of controversy about Kanye, but Kanye's out here, he's telling the truth. He's telling the truth. This is genocide. What's happening is genocide to their people. They want to control population.
That's right.
Who's gentrifying downtown? Is it Republicans? No, it's Democrats. And they're pushing them where? To Price Hill, where I grew up, to Westwood, to Bond Hill, to Avondale. Get them away from us, right? Not my backyard. That's what they are. Right? And I'll tell you what else they do. My opponent, rich kid from Amberley Village. Actually, I don't even know where the guy grew up. Best friends with PG Sittenfeld. They had started together. They used to work for Obama together. I got pictures of them driving around in a car. Matter of fact, I've got an ad running right now with the two of them together, just smiling real big on their way to some Obama thing. Best friends with this guy. One of the most corrupt politicians in Cincinnati history, and then you've got the balls to carpetbag your way from Blue Ash or Amberley Village or wherever in the world you live into my neighborhood? Into Price Hill? No, I grew up in them streets. You're not going to come down here without a fight. You're not from here. You're not going to bring your little nonprofit that listens to the community. I was the community. We're the community. I don't need a nonprofit. This kid's got a degree. Tell me if you know anybody in Price Hill with degrees from Georgetown, Cambridge in England, and Yale. Why do you get a Yale law degree? You get a Yale law degree to start a nonprofit because you can't get a job in the real world. That's what he did. It's insane, guys. And this is the guy I'm running against. I started a business back in 2015. We sold that business, despite the fact I came from all this. Started a business 2015, sold that business to Zillow for 9 figures. No more of this socialism nonsense. You can't do stuff. I want to focus on what we can do, guys.
I think we kind of know where he stands. No, thank you so much for that. I appreciate that. And now we have someone from the Coleraine area. Where is Mr. Bill Blessing? Come on down. In case you guys didn't know, I'm from Coleraine Township as well. We claim the west side, but everybody kind of goes, you're a little bit in between. So, I don't know, you claim to be a west sider?
I tried, but my mother has said no. She's from Cheviot, and Coleraine is emphatically not the west
Interesting.
side. So
Yeah.
that's what she said, and I will
Mama
take
knows
her word
best.
for it. Correct, that's right. She always said the border was Cheviot, Price Hill, Green Township, Delhi, and the like. But I did enjoy seeing on the sign there issue 2, which I helped carry in the Senate. To keep local municipalities from allowing non-citizens to vote, which I'm sure all of you are familiar with and why that is a bad thing. But, you know, it's weird when I was going through that, just how, you know, I thought this can't possibly be the case. And normally when I introduce legislation, I will typically go to LSC and ask questions like, look, is this actually a thing? Could it be a thing? I mean, in our Constitution, we have home rule. Does home rule actually give them this ability? And the answer, according to the staff attorney that drafted my answer, yes, it is the case. And she went back to a case that was decided back in, I think, 1919 or 1918 on women's suffrage. It was at a time when women couldn't vote. Court at the time had said, yeah, they may not be able to vote right now. That amendment hadn't passed, but we're going to say it's okay. So there was prior case law, and you know, sure enough, if that doesn't pass, it wouldn't surprise me if you know, one of the bigger cities did decide to do that. So very important that you vote yes on issue 2 as well as issue 1 and all the other things that happen to be on there as well. But One thing that or actually a couple things that I wanted to focus on, probably should introduce myself first. State Senator Bill Blessing, the 8th Senate District. I'm actually not up for election this cycle. I'm up presidential years, so I was up in 2020. I'll be up again in 24. So this is the period of time for me to develop legislation and work on things that I think are incredibly important, but more importantly, things that just fall by the wayside. You've heard a lot, I'm sure tonight. I got here probably 7:25-ish. You've heard a lot about abortion policy. You've heard a lot about guns. You've heard a lot about lower taxes and spending. No question, you've heard all that before. But there are some insidious things going on that I have not liked. And frankly, these are things that actually would draw Democrat support, and are, as much as I know you guys are probably sick of hearing that, mushy Republicans working with Democrats, but I'm telling you, on some of these things, you're going to want their support. Issue 2, for example, in the Senate, does anybody know what the vote was on that? When I was SJR 6, when I was carrying it, we ultimately went with HJR 4, I believe, in the House. But when the Senate voted on that, that was unanimous. Every single Democrat voted to put that on the ballot in the Ohio Senate. So keep that in mind. So the first bill that I wanted to discuss was my cash bill. And this is something that came from a Democrat state. It has passed in other Democrat states. Didn't get any co-sponsors, didn't bother, really even having a joint sponsor with this. What it does is it says that retail establishments cannot refuse to accept cash as payment. Okay? Thank you. And you might be like, why in the world is that an issue? It turns out that legal tender doesn't mean what you think it means. It's all debts, public and private. Well, if you go to the Apple store to have something repaired, I'm not an Apple user, I don't really care for that company, and I'll get into that in a bit. But I will tell you, they can ask you to pay card up front. You can't have that, or you don't have a card. Sayonara, you're not doing that sort of business. Now, as annoying as that is, there's a lot of places that you can go and use cash now. It's not a big deal. But it's the subliminal trend that's sort of going on here, that we're moving towards a cashless society. And I don't need to remind you all how bad that will be if we wind up in a cashless society. And it really scares the Democrats too. I've had a number of them come up and say, if there's a vote on this bill, we will support it today with you. Because they understand that having all of your financial transactions tracked by big tech, big banks, and big government all working in league together is a terrifyingly frightening scenario in the future. You look at it now like, hey, I want to go grab a drink, I want to go to Wendy's, I want to do whatever. Do you want to live in a future where your doctor's like, probably should be cutting down on that sort of thing, and that gets into the system, and they're like, oh, we've seen you've been to Wendy's twice this week. We're going to cut off that third time that you go. That is not a world that I want.
We don't want any of that.
It's horrifying. So I do hope to get this done. Interestingly enough, the chairman of the committee where that bill is in, Chairman Michael Ruley of Youngstown, no less, very Democratic area that flipped Republican. In fact, DeWine, Rose, all the statewides really are here in part because that area went so far from blue to red that it's not even in competitive territory anymore. So he was very enthusiastic about it. So were his constituents. I think we get that done either in lame duck or next General Assembly. 2, and this is another one that the business community just does not like, but I have a real problem with the institutional housing investors. I'm sure many of you have read about the World Economic Forum and Klaus Schwab, the famous words that came out of his mouth, you'll own nothing and you'll like it. Well, we seem to be moving towards that as a society, away from an ownership model to life by subscription. And housing is no different, where you have, I won't name names, but a number of businesses have decided, hey, we can pull in tons of private equity, buy up as much property as we possibly can, and then permanently rent it out, thus destroying the ability to build intergenerational wealth It destroys the ability for young people to start families. One time, I'm sure many of you remember, when you saw families 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 kids or more was not uncommon in Cincinnati, Catholic Cincinnati. But today, not as much anymore. And can you really blame them when housing costs what it costs now? When higher ed, which is really nothing more than a credentialing farm these days, in terms of you go there, you pay a ton of money for something that, do you really need that degree for that particular job? Is it any wonder that they have trouble with family formation? And I have a bill, 2 bills actually, and a third one on the way, that seeks to fight back on that, to fight back and push the ownership model again with housing so people can get into homes. They have a fixed rate mortgage, a solid payment, and they can get on to other things in life and not be renting for the rest of their lives and not having to live a life by subscription, at least with housing. And this is another one. The Democrats overwhelmingly support this. They really do. And it's one of those things that you would think would be a no-brainer. But again, one of my biggest gripes with the Republican Party lately is that, we can go hard and heavy against big government. But when it comes to tyranny by big business, we can't have that. We fall by the wayside. We just don't know how to handle it. And I think we need to be a little more circumspect, if you will, with being more pro-market and less pro-business. And there is a difference. So that, I think, we get done next General Assembly. There is growing support in both the House and the Senate for that. Third bill, though, I have not introduced. And this is an interesting one. It's not really directly related to a lot of other policy, but it is kind of a niche idea. Again, business community hates it. How many are familiar with right to repair? Nobody. Oh, he is. Very good. Somebody is. There's always somebody. It's kind of a niche issue. But what has been going on lately with a lot of businesses, particularly Apple? I will bring it because I had mentioned them before. Apple has gotten into the habit that, hey, we are an electronics manufacturer. We make computers, cell phones, you name it, iPads. They found that it is actually not just lucrative to sell those sorts of things, but also to have a monopoly on repair as well. So if you wanted to just change the battery on your phone, give it a little more life, not necessarily going to be, you certainly aren't going to be able to repair it on your own. And sometimes you take it to them, they're just going to say, sorry, it's obsolete. There's also insidious concepts like planned obsolescence, where something actually does work well, but software within it is written in such a way that, like, hey, look, after a certain period of time, we're going to slow down performance and force you to buy something new. And I just think that is terrible. I mean, I'm not, somebody that's, hard to the left on environmental issues, but I really don't like the idea that we're just becoming a throwaway kind of society where it's like, well, we just toss it. There needs to be a certain sense of human agency where we learn to repair our own stuff again. It used to be that way 50, 60, 70 years ago where people knew how to do that. Now, pitch it, have somebody else do it. There's a service, there's an app, there's whatever, and not making the effort. But there is something fulfilling to doing that sort of thing. Now, I know I'm getting close on time here. Chrissy's looking at me kind of funny. I'll try to take questions if I do have time, but I do plan on coming back for, I think you do this monthly or quarterly or monthly. So when my schedule permits, I would like to come back more. So any questions from anybody? Yep, back in the back. So you're talking about Catherine Ingram, right? Running for, yes. Well, she has an out sort of in the sense that she was in the House at the time, and a lot of House members did vote no on issue 2. I presume they voted no on issue 1 as well. But you know what? That's on them. That's going to go to the voters. They're going to see how that all plays out. And I think it's going to give them pause because both of those issues, I'm convinced, are going to have high numbers. Yep. Absolutely. The trick is, how do you go about doing that? Now, I have made a point of telling the Chamber of Commerce and other business entities that, look, I kind of feel disrespected. Not only, that you guys had suddenly taken a hard left turn socially here in the past couple of years and have been very corporatist in your attitude, but, it's just terrible for the economy in general. And I will tell you, Republicans in Columbus are absolutely looking at that issue, not just in the House, but in the Senate and the statewide as well. So be prepared.
House Bill 218 is pending, and it's the forced vaccine bill, House 218.
I'm not as familiar with it, but I'm in the Senate, remember, but go ahead.
It's in the Senate.
It's in the Senate. Which committee?
It's in the Budget Committee.
Not on that committee, but
The bill is expected to move possibly because it's already had 2 hearings in the Senate.
when were the hearings, if I might ask?
There was one in December and November of last year. The bill is not called a vaccine bill, it's called a
Right to refuse?
liquor bill.
Liquor bill.
It's extending bar-
It's a liquor bill?
They passed it as
Yeah.
it was written.
Speaker Cox and it's a liquor bill, and Speaker Cox had all the language for the liquor, hours extension.
Yep.
Strict, turned it into a forced vaccine bill for all students, employees.
It is.
And all college students, forced mRNA vaccine specifically.
Okay,
In order not to have that vaccine, you would have to jump through 3 separate hoops. You would have to claim an exemption under 3 different possibilities, whereas your body is not yours. It now belongs to the government. The government has the authority to give that right to your body to these third parties. We have our right to the courts stripped from us in that bill. We have to go through the Civil Rights Commission when we're denied these exemptions. It has a piece in there I call the Kill It Will bill. It's House Bill 606. You already passed that in the Senate and House. It gives complete immunity to all healthcare workers, pharmacists, and so on. That's expired. This bill, 218, has an extension of that into the future and retroactively unconstitutionally. There are so many things in there. I don't want to take up the rest of the evening, but it's a very bad bill, and I cannot get any confirmation from Senator Huffman whether he's going to repeal that bill. I can't.
which Senator Hoffman, if I might ask? There's 2 of them.
Your president.
Okay, Matt Hoffman, yeah.
I'm sorry. The Senate president will determine whether that bill goes through or dies, right?
Yeah.
We have several sessions coming up where the Senate will be in full session, and I cannot get any confirmation from him nor the chairman Peterson of that committee. He will not commit as to whether he will kill or pass that bill.
Right.
And the members are very mum on that. So if that comes to you, would you vote for a forced vaccine bill if there are exemptions, as long as we can jump through these
I
hoops?
really prefer having an opportunity to look at that before. I know that's not the answer you want me to say definitively one way or another. I really feel much more comfortable having a chance to look at that before I answer that question.
Are you for vaccine mandates? I mean, are you for medical freedom?
I am for medical freedom. I am not for forced vaccinations. But again, the devil is in the details with bills like this, and I will never cop to something that I don't know what's in it.
Would you support the right to refuse as a bill in legislation? Have you read the right to
I
refuse?
do not, I'm not familiar with right to refuse.
That was House Bill 248.
That's,
No,
but that's,
the right to refuse language for the constitutional amendment. There's a constitutional amendment to put language on the ballot to protect.
was that the one that, I vaguely recall that was the one that failed to get to the ballot, was it?
There's an amendment now. You can keep, the language is out in the hallway.
Okay.
It was a petition.
I will take a look at it for what that's worth. Sorry.
Sorry.
We're all for pretty much medical freedom here, like just to give you advice. We don't want anybody
Sure,
telling us what we have to do. And we don't want to go get tested, to prove natural immunity or whatever, or how many antibodies do I have, or I have to get a religious exemption. We don't want, because this is the United States of America, we don't want to get that vaccine. We don't want to get it.
Individual
I mean, that's just. You are our state, you are our senator.
I understand where you guys, sure, and that's good, that's good. And I will tell you though, but you real quick though, you should give the Senate President some grace, certainly Chairman Peterson. This time of year, when you get into lame duck, there's a lot of horse trading between the House and the Senate. I don't know what's going on, particularly with that being a rank and file senator,
My
but
vote isn't on the table for.
I understand. I understand.
You were right.
I understand. So, very good. Well, anything else? Yes. Oh, good to see you. How you doing?
Thanks for the first three bills you mentioned. I agree with you on all of those. My question, and for many of you here, you also sit on the executive committee of the Hamilton County Republican Party.
Yeah.
During the summer primary, both when Angela and I were running for state representatives, you stood up and voted on behalf of Bill Seitz and Chris Marcel to endorse them in the primary, which was actually against the Constitution of the Hamilton County Republican Party bylaws. Can you please explain to the crowd here why we made that choice?
Because I've worked with Bill Seitz for years, I've known Chris Monzel for years, and I like them as candidates. It's nothing against you.
The opportunity to make a monopoly against two candidates?
Well, you asked my
We don't
opinion.
like Bill Seitz.
Yes, I understand, but I do think, I think you'd be surprised just how effective Bill Seitz has been for your cause, and I understand frustration.
Right, but the
But-
point is, you wrote the Constitution of the Hamilton County Republican.
Well, I still, I stand
What
by,
I want to say is that you didn't write that, so I'd like to submit that here.
well, I am standing by my support of Bill Seitz and Chris Monzel.
You're supporting Chris Monzel and Bill Seitz, which is basically like a monopoly on the Hamilton County Republican Party, whereas it's supposed to be the right of the people to make the choices. And that is my point, and I would like you to acknowledge that.
Well, I will just continue to say what I've told you. I support the two gentlemen. I don't regret the vote.
It's hard enough for people to get on a ballot with these lifelong career politicians. You really got to level the playing field and let people who really, like this woman right here, really are for the people to have a chance. And when you do something like that and you say, well, I'm just supporting my buddy, it's still, we understand that, but it pretty much rules a lot of people out. And
Yeah.
we have to level the playing field because you can't have everyone, the only way you can win a political race is if you have $1 billion or $1 million. We have to stop that. We need people who are just for the people to have a chance.
Okay. Very good. Anyone else? Very
Do we
good.
have any other questions, guys? Any other questions?
Oh, John has.
John? Sorry.
No.
What's your stand on the backpack bill where the funding's gonna follow the student?
So
We cannot
I
hear people. We cannot hear people.
So I will repeat what he said. He was curious what the status of the backpack bill is, this General Assembly or next. It's probably not going to pass this General Assembly because that is a lot of money. It's a budgetary item. So I would suspect something in the school choice realm will pass in the budget. What it is, I can't say. But I will tell you that you have the most school choice Senate president that I've ever heard of in my time in the Ohio General Assembly. Does that mean the backpack bill? I don't know. But I cannot imagine that he would go home without an increase in the choice scholarships or an increase in funding to charter schools generally. That would be my assessment on that.
Senator, I ask you about your very important bill that would force businesses to accept cash.
Yes.
That is, in a way, if they were eligible cash, we basically are in a dictatorship because the next step will be, you criticized us on Facebook, your bank account, and that'll be somewhere down the road. And you try to run your money through somebody else's account, goes to you and jail them. So that, your bill there is extremely important. Could I ask you, who is blocking it from coming to the vote, is it the Republican leaders who vote in the House?
So he asked what was blocking the cash bill that I had introduced. And I would tell you, it is the business community does not like it. Their reasoning behind it is that let the free market work, which I kind of think is a red herring, but that's their attitude with it. They also don't like the fact that it has a private right of action in there. So in other words, if you are injured, like if you try to use cash, if that bill were to pass, you could actually sue the establishment. And they felt that was too heavy-handed. They may have a point with that part, but sorry, go ahead.
But couldn't the Republicans in the House and the Senate in Columbus just ignore them and at least protect cash?
Sure they could if they actually agreed with that, which I can't say that they do. I mean, there's a number of members that are look, I think they're good folks, but I do think a lot of times they are sometimes unflinchingly supportive of the business community, which is not where you want to be. So, you're welcome. Okay. Okay.
They were facially recognized in software.
Okay.
House Bill 74 took our facially recognized faces in the driver's license database and gave it to a third party, private third party in that bill.
Yeah.
So I was very upset. I talked to Mr. Brinkman, I don't know if he's still here, but there was a group of people in the House that voted no on that bill. When I discovered that, I called them and they voted no. It is law. Would you consider reversing that, putting a bill in that says, now we're already in this database and they're probably selling us for who knows how much every day of the week. I mean, that's how these private businesses get our faces.
Sure.
And I have a Fourth Amendment right to be secure in my person. Nobody should have voted for that. That is my right. Now, my face is my person. I think you can't do more Fourth Amendment than that.
Yeah.
Would you consider introducing a bill that every 16-year-old child going forward when they get their license won't end up in that database and be given to these third-party individuals?
This is, I'm trying to understand. So you get your driver's license going forward, okay? Let's say 18-year-old right now gets your driver's license, and that photo is taken, and that goes off to a third party, and then what?
That is in the possession of the government in the state of Ohio.
Right.
The Driver's License Bureau. When DeWine was AG, he secretly went and had all those pictures facial recognized with software. Nobody knew it.
Okay.
That's been done, and every time we go to get our driver's license, our face is being stolen and it's tied to facial recognition. But they gave it away to the Department of Motor Vehicles Trade Association. Now, I want to know, what are you doing with my face? How many people did you give it to? How many people did you sell it to? How many stores do I walk into where they know it's me because you gave them my face? You know, that was just such a violation of my constitutional rights.
I mean, this is the first I've heard of it. I can look into it. I'll tell you who might actually be able to help you with this. Like my cash bill, there's an entity who is very, very interested in privacy issues that I'll bet you any amount of money. Most of you folks haven't thought to reach out to them. It's the ACLU.
I did contact them.
Really? Good.
Yes, prior to that actually being voted on, because I found out about a small window, and I did reach out to them. There's a gentleman there who's very middle of the road. He was anyway in the past. I had contact him, and he did not respond back to me.
Okay. I mean, reach out to my office. I mean, we'll investigate it. But like I said, those organizations, they take privacy very seriously. And well, they at least took my cash bill seriously because they were proponents of it. So anyway.
We are going to cut questions
Yep.
at this point.
Okay.
These are great questions.
They'll all be here later.
All right, we have a write-in candidate who you guys may have heard of. Come on down. You guys know we lost Neil Peterson with the signatures and stuff like that. Well, guys, we got another shot at DeWine.
Well said. I love it. So thanks for coming out. Whenever you decide to throw your hat into the ring for governor, you get an opportunity to speak in a lot of different places. And I will tell you, I love coming to these kinds of events because it just shows that there are like-minded people that are out there. They're getting off their couch, they're going out, they're educating themselves on the issues and getting involved. And really, that's why I'm here. My name is Marshall Usher. I am a Christian, I'm a patriot, a husband and a dad, and I'm running as a write-in for governor of Ohio. I've never run for office. I've never been in politics before. I was late to the game in terms of even getting involved in the political scene. Like a lot of folks, I would vote for the lesser of two evils and continuously expect a different result. And then this guy by the name of Donald Trump came down the escalator and kicked in the front door on national politics. And I said, man, this is a guy that I can really get behind. And next thing you know, I'm going to Trump rallies, getting involved in volunteering for state level races. And I think one of the reasons I'm here is because like 52% of other conservatives around the state, I did not vote for Mike DeWine in the primary. And whenever my guy was unsuccessful, I think like a lot of people, my plan B was Neil Peterson. And after Neil failed to make it on the ballot, I wasn't going to vote. And one thing you have to understand about me is I was raised by a single mom as well. I mean, your story resonated that very much. My mom happened to be a former Marine, and so whenever you throw words around like honor and duty, that meant something. That means something to me now, and it meant something growing up. And whenever I sat back and said, if you don't vote, to me that's like saying having Mike DeWine tell you shut up, sit back, and take it. And it's not in my DNA. So we went around and we looked for other folks that had more money, more name recognition, and to a person, they all said they couldn't or wouldn't do it. The folks that were in politics said it's political suicide, but they said I'll support you 100% if you do it. And I'm like, no, it's a horrible idea. There's much better candidates out there, and we would go to the next person. And at some point, you look around the room, and you're the last one with your finger to your nose saying not it. And I've been blessed with an opportunity in my day job. I'm a true citizen candidate. I have a day job. I campaign at night. I wake up early in the mornings and tend to Facebook and emails and whatnot. But in my day job, I do critical logistics sales. So that means everything from hearts and lungs for transplant, things like radiopharmaceuticals for cancer treatments and radiology. So we move all of that kind of stuff. So being in sales gives me a lot of flexibility. My background prior to logistics was in operations. So I've worked at Rolls-Royce. I've had director level roles at Rolls-Royce, global team, over 100 people strong. I've had 2 director roles at NetJets after that, where I was responsible for committing $800 million a year in company funds to maintain their fleet of 750 aircraft around the world. So I'm not afraid of big budgets. I'm not afraid of big organizations. And whenever you are raised in a household like I was, you learn a couple things. One, you learn, like I said, what honor and duty actually means. And you have 2 choices whenever you recognize that there's a problem. You can either stand up and do something about it, or you can sit back and continue to be part of the problem. And here we are. The other thing that you learn is how to stand up to bullies. And one of my favorite stories is I was probably 4 years old. Came in, got punched in the face by the neighborhood bully, and And I came home and I was like, hey, I told my mom what happened. She's like, well, what did you do? What do you mean, what did I do? I came in here and told you. You're here. You go handle it. And she's like, well, get your butt out there and punch him back. Okay, so I mustered up all the courage that I had, and I walked outside and I closed my eyes and punched Nathan right in the face. And the next thing you know, we end up being best friends, growing up. But that's one of the reasons I'm here. Is what we saw from Mike DeWine during the pandemic was worse. It was worse than bullying. It was flat out tyranny, right?
It was
100%. And I will admit that, listen, it's going to be a tough putt as a write-in candidate getting elected. If you've done the research, a independent candidate that's on the ballot is hard enough. They get about 1.5% in any normal election. A write-in candidate in Ohio has never gotten more than 1,000 votes. So I'll tell you, we're gonna shatter that record this year. But because there's never been a write-in candidate that has faced 2 just horrible choices. After the primary and after Neil Peterson didn't make it on the ballot, our choices were a communist masquerading as a Democrat and a Democrat masquerading as a Republican, with nobody left to represent we the people. So if we did catch lightning in a bottle, what would Ohio look like? And I'll tell you, it would look a lot like Florida with snow. And the reason I say that is, as a governor candidate, I have a luxury that a lot of folks don't have. we can look to other leaders around the country and see the policies that they put in place and adopt those for ourselves. Now, Ron DeSantis was very kind in writing down everything that he's done in Florida, and he literally calls it the DeSantis playbook for Florida. Now, I'm also a soccer coach, and anybody that has played sports or coaches sports will tell you that you can't pick up another team's playbook, run it verbatim, and expect to be successful. So what we've done is the plays that we can run with the people that we have and that fit our state, we've adopted those. The ones that don't fit us exactly, we have adapted those. But one thing that you will find in both plans is that string of restoring the freedoms that we've lost over the last handful of years and making sure that government is given back to the people. Our elected leaders are so far removed from we the people that, I mean, they have trouble coming out and interfacing and talking. As a candidate, you're obligated to do the fair circuit, right? So we were going to all of the different fairs, and at one of them, we were standing outside of the GOP tent having a conversation with just a couple folks, and Mike DeWine and his entourage come rolling in, and there's security and all of the handlers and whatnot, and they go flown into the GOP tent. They're there for maybe 3 minutes. They take 4 different pictures, and he's out the back and he's gone. And we're sitting there just watching it happen in front of us and just laughing about it. And so that is exactly the difference that you'll get between a citizen candidate who's going to come out here and talk to the people, who wants to know what's on your mind. What pain are you feeling? I'll tell you what I'm feeling. I'm worried about the gas prices. I'm worried about food prices. I'm worried about violence in the streets. Those are the things that real people are worried about. It's not abortion. I am staunchly pro-life, but one of the other gentlemen that spoke earlier hit the nail on the head. That is not the kitchen table issues or an issue in this election. But a little bit of what you would expect, kind of running through that program. You will have 2 people that will protect the preborn. We will educate our kids, not indoctrinate them. We will secure our elections, and we'll ensure a medical right to refuse for every citizen in Ohio, period. When I was at Rolls-Royce, part of my responsibility was global process development. And whenever you develop processes, there are 2 things you try to balance: effectiveness and efficiency. If you have a process that is super effective, but it takes you forever to execute it, no one's going to do it. If you have a process that's easy to execute but doesn't give you the results that you want, it doesn't matter. If you look at our elections, we have over-rotated so far to efficiency that we have completely left effectiveness on our off the table. Right? What's an effective election? Getting it right. I don't care how many times, how long it takes to count those ballots, that you need to get it right. So one of the things that we'll do is, we are very supportive of voting Amish. I know Dr. Frank is a big hit out here. He has been kind enough to endorse us. And that's wise. We will absolutely support paper ballots and hand counting of those paper ballots. A couple other things that you'll get. We're going to lock up violent offenders and opioid dealers for good. We know what the problem is. It's the violent offenders on the streets. It's the opioid dealers pushing it into our cities. And I will tell you, I view fentanyl, I think, slightly different than some people. Nobody or very few people are going out for fentanyl runs, right? They're going out, they're buying other recreational drugs, right, wrong, or indifferent, and they're being poisoned. These people are being poisoned. If I showed up at the border and I said, I have a bag of a substance that will kill millions of people with just a microscopic amount, that would be classified as a weapon of mass destruction. There's no reason that fentanyl shouldn't have the same treatment. We need to stop the flow of illegals. I love the DeSantis flights to Martha's Vineyard. That was brilliant. I think one of the first posts that we did whenever we announced our candidacy was I looked up Nancy Pelosi's home office in San Francisco, and those are where the first 3 buses of illegals will go whenever we find them in Ohio. We want to make Ohio a destination for law enforcement officers and retiring veterans. So let's separate those for a second, right? We have a tremendous opportunity right now with great law enforcement officers fleeing all of these woke cities. if you look at some of the things that Florida has put in place to attract them, they're going to Florida in droves. Things like a $60,000 a year minimum salary, things like grants that will offset the cost to come in from out of state to pass state-specific tests. These are all things that are very easy to do that would bring us really good law enforcement officers in droves. And we also want to extend the Homestead Act or abatement, the housing abatement for first responders, police officers, and that includes corrections officers. We haven't forgotten them, and our EMT folks. We believe that having the people that serve the community, live in the community, is a good thing, and we want to make sure that they can afford to do that. We will eradicate the scourge of human trafficking in our state. Not something you hear a lot of other politicians talking about. I'll let you connect the dots on why that might be. I think you all know the statistics, right? We are the third worst state in the country. Toledo is top 5 worst states or cities in the country. Whenever I was at Rolls-Royce, I had an opportunity to work for a gentleman that flew for the 160th SOAR, Special Operation Army or Air Regiment. They're called the Night Stalkers, or the guys that went in to get Bin Laden. So he flew Blackhawks for these guys. And he has a lot of colleagues that fly for the OSP today. I did not realize how rampant human trafficking was until he opened my eyes. The stories that you'll hear from these pilots that track these animals, you'll lose sleep. It will keep you up at night. And I think one of the reasons that we don't hear anyone talking about it is because one of the people that funded one of the biggest animals that we know is none other than Les Wexner, who is also funding Mike DeWine. So connect the dots. But I will tell you that one of the first actions that we'll take is promoting the head of the Human Trafficking Task Force. From right now, they report into the administrative division of the Ohio State Police to a cabinet level position so that they have access to every resource that this state has to bear to end that poison at our borders. We believe in the nuclear family and traditional values like boys should only compete against boys in sports and that boys should only use boys' restrooms. I've got a daughter. That's one of the reasons I'm here is, there's no way that I want her competing against biological males. We believe that your biology is determined by your chromosomes, not how you identify. If we're going to start picking your pronouns, I'd much rather pick my own adjectives. We believe in the Constitution, and more importantly, we will fight to maintain those God-given rights. They are not rights granted by man, not rights granted by a piece of paper, rights granted by God. The only thing that the Constitution has done is codified that. So we believe in small government, low taxes, and besides fixing some of the potholes and arresting the bad guys, we pretty much want government to just stay out of our way. And that's what you'll get. So if these are things that you also believe, and I will tell you that there's only one choice for governor on November 8th. We need a revolution in this state. And my friend Corey always says that the pen is mightier than the sword, right? That is never more true on November 8th when you use that pen to write in Marshall Usher and Shannon Walker for governor of Ohio. Thank you. God bless. God bless Ohio. Oh, and HB 218 would be dead on arrival.
Okay, thank you. Question? Right there.
Do you have to write in both names?
Very good question. Do we have to write in both names?
Yes. Sorry.
You get this one. Do we have to write in both names? Here, read it.
Gotcha.
Yeah, that one.
I don't know if this one's on. I'm sorry.
No worries. So can everyone hear me?
Yeah.
I can check. All right. So
No, it's on.
Okay.
It's on now. You're good. Sorry.
no worries. So best practice is to write in both names with a "and" in between, just as it appeared on the Ohio Board of Elections directive. Now, I'm hearing that you will not be able to fit both of our names with the word "and" in the electronic ballots. There is case law in Ohio, don't panic, that says The Board of Election just has to be able to understand the intent of the voter. So, we all have the utmost of trust in our boards of elections, so there's not going to be any problems. Now, honestly, we have some attorneys that are standing by, and they're locked and loaded to go after this. So we're already drafting orders to request all of the ballots so that we can go through them ourselves. And these attorneys, that's one thing that's interesting for folks that haven't run before, like me. I just assumed that you could call up an attorney in Columbus and they would help you run your campaign. That is not true. What I have found is a lot of the good ones are under retainer, and the ones that are beating down your door, you want nothing to do with. So I found a gentleman in Florida, actually, funny enough, a friend of a friend, who has run against Republican judges as a Republican. So he's all about taking on the establishment. So I was like, yep, you're my guy. So he's ready to roll if this thing would go south. We're ready to take it to the mat.
Any other questions? All right, thank you very much, Mr.
All right.
So without further ado, we have running for Secretary of State, Miss Tori Maras. Is that correct, or is it
Maras, it's whichever. I'm ethnic, so, it's easier than my first name. My first name is, when you see it on your ballot, it says Terpsahori, so it's me. So just look for the Secretary of State with the non-pronounceable name, and you're there. So I'm really glad to be here again. I'm very vertically challenged. I'm actually wearing heels today, too, sort of. So I'm really excited to be here because I'm seeing a different, a lot of candidates. We're seeing write-ins have conversations. This is something that people, didn't even think of having happen. But think about it for a second. We have people going out and campaigning as write-ins because the two-party system has literally failed us. Okay? It has. 100 years now, right? And for 100 years, we have been told we either pick blue or we pick red. And maybe sometimes we get some green, but they're a little weird, so. And then we have the libertarians that, I don't know if some of them are actual libertarians. I know someone that founded the libertarians. He's a very good friend of mine, Patrick Byrne, right? And yeah, a lot of people don't like him. He's like brie cheese, so am I. You either like me or you don't, right? But he's a libertarian. And what does that mean? It doesn't really mean anything to me, except for when I listen to people in New Hampshire talk about it, right? Because it seems like they're the center of it. But what does it mean to be an American or a statesman is what's really important here. What we've lost sight of is what elections are about. In the 80s and the 90s, it was all about balloons and confetti and deifying these people that, show you pictures of their 2.5 children and their white picket fence telling you how much better they are than you. So you should vote for them because they know best, right? To the 2000s, where it became all about racial disparity and progressiveness, or going back to the basics, right? So we just had a dynasty with the Bush dynasty, right? Which we all know began in the 1940s with an actual executive order from Roosevelt confiscating George Bush Sr.'s father's everything because they were funding the Nazis. But, everybody forgot about that. We made him CIA director, we made him president, and his kid, And Hillary was right. Hillary Clinton was right. People have a short-term memory, and what you tell them, they remember, right? No matter even if it's documented history or not, that's the way it is. Now, when I decided that I wanted to throw my hat in the race, full transparency, I wanted to throw my hat in the race just to open up these boxes. I actually reached out to Joe Bledsoe and I said, hey, you're running for governor. I hear that, I didn't know that he had another lieutenant governor. I was like, how about you be lieutenant governor and I go governor? We'll get all the press people. There's a lot of people that love to hate me. I feel like the Trump of Ohio. People are literally ripping down my signs and, foaming at the mouth when they hear my name. And I find that appeasing in a way because that's what demons do when good comes out. They don't like it. But Usher, was the one that was like, well, why don't you just go for Secretary of State? I mean, you know about elections. He actually told me that because Joe was like, no, I already got a lieutenant governor. So I was like, fine, you'd win with me. And Usher was the one that suggested it. And I thought about it and I said, well, as Secretary of State, what can I do? Right? There's no point in just running. I mean, if I just wanted to run to get on the ballot, I could run state legislature, right? Or run for my district. But the point is, what if you win, right? You've got to be able to do the job. I'd totally be able to be Senate, Congress. They really do nothing. So it would just be me playing video games and turning up one day to vote and not reading anything, but just signing it because they said so, right? But I'm a person that likes to make change, right? And so far, just getting on the ballot, we've changed the face of Ohio and history, right? We have, right? We were able to see just how far they will go to hold on to these red cage and blue cage. You're not allowed to be out of it. And it's not only the parties that are fighting, but it's your own media. It's and it's the people too. We're in the United States of America, right? And I know a lot of people are like, we don't need liberals. No, we do. We don't need conservatives. No, we do. Because, you know, a couple years ago, I ran into a guy when I was traveling who put those, you know, those electric scooters that you rent on the street, you know, where they're just parked anywhere. I said, man, that was a genius idea. How'd you get them to do it? He's like, I didn't. I just went to a city and dropped them all there. And that's it. And I was like, what? I was like, did they arrest you? He's like, nah, kind of worked. And so this guy's wishy-washy. And I'm like, so yeah, he was really relaxed, you know, and everything. And I'm thinking, how is he running a business? You know, I think I'm funny, but, you know, when I'm in business mode, I'm not aloof, right? This guy was aloof in business mode. So I was like, so turns out his actual business partner is a rigid person, super conservative, has 100 kids, goes to church every Sunday, has his guns. This guy doesn't know what gender he is, you know, kind of, he's very fluid, right? But it works, right? It works. Because see, this is the problem that we have in society today. We're in a tribal era where you either belong to the left or the right. The right will tell you, you can't go in independents or write-ins because guess what? You're going to dilute the vote. Not if we all don't vote for them, right? And not if we all vote for the independent, right? Because people are telling me Frank LaRose conservative. He's a Republican. Now, let me dispel that rumor because that's hearsay and it smells. So let's start on that, okay? So yes, the GOP loves him, right? But you know who else loves him? Walmart. Right? When your businesses were closed down during COVID, his sponsors made a buck, right? Who else loves him? Pfizer. When you lost your job for not getting the vaccine, his sponsor made a buck. You know who else loves him? Pedophiles. Epstein. Epstein Network loves Frank LaRose, right? They funded him $55,000. Actually, it was $50,000 from Les and his wife, and then just an extra $5,000 kicker from Les, just as a thank you. So when I hear Christians, conservatives, oh, what they're doing to the children is so bad, but then they're voting for people that are funded by the very people that are doing those bad things, I'm like, okay, so are you like a little conservative, little Christian? Like, where are we going with this, right? We need to be more careful where we drop our votes, right? We need to be more careful is to see who funds them. You know, it's unfortunate that they don't wear NASCAR suits, right? Because then you'd know who they're speaking for. And in the case of Frank LaRose, our legislators, all of them need to be lined up and spanked. You know why? Because they passed a law allowing him to also be a federal servant. Frank LaRose is actually officially a federal employee too. He's a DHS advisor. Now you tell me how that doesn't blur the lines between federal and state. It does. It's unconstitutional. And yet they got it into law. I hear people saying, DeWine shut us down, Amy acting, you know, and they're screaming and crying. And it's like, see, you're pointing at the wrong place. They will never do something that they don't have the authority to do. Let me tell you how these people work, because I used to be one of the corrupt people, okay? This is why they hate me so much. But there was a tax bill in March that they were passing right before the lockdowns. Nothing to do with COVID. It was just taxes. Guess what they put in that bill? Kind of like, just sign it, read it later. 2 sentences. In a pandemic, we cancel elections. Your legislators did that. Right? Not Frank, not DeWine, even though they've done a lot of other stuff, right? This they didn't do. So while all of you were busy pointing at the guys that executed that, you have to remember that they have to have the authority to do it. And that's the problem. We don't understand our civics anymore. And you know what? I don't blame anyone. Past 20 years, politics are just so stupid, you tune out. I mean, look at the way we look. We have people that can't string sentences together, right? That don't understand things. I mean, for all of you, I don't know if you've read it, but I actually filed a case in the Supreme Court asking, one, as an independent to have observers at the polls, because apparently only Democrats and Republicans are allowed, right? And number 2, I want to see the counting. The law says I can observe the count. Right? And that count's done in a little black box called counting software, right? And LaRose, in his response, it showed that they don't understand how the voting machines work. And yet there he is, the Secretary of State. I didn't ask for all of the source code. Most of it's Microsoft. It's free. And a lot of it, Craigslist, which, by the way, keep on. Would you buy a couch from Craigslist easily? No, you think of bed bugs, like what happened on that couch, right? But guess who's sponsoring our election security? Craigslist. Like, come on. Can we get any more stupid? Seriously. This is where we're at. We've reduced ourselves, right? To what? So, I mean, when I saw that, I was like, are you serious? Like, we see Facebook protect, but come on, Craigslist protect. Like, have you seen the nightmares and the ads they have on there? Like, why would you even think, yeah, election security, Craigslist, legit, right? Nobody would say that. Nobody. So it's just so dumb. And the thing is, the other dumb thing is that people don't pay attention because they're so dumb. They make us tune out. You just you can't listen to them. You can't. You're just like, I don't want to deal with it. And it's like, look, if you don't deal with it, you're going to deal with it at some point. We're dealing with it right now. Look at that. With this, infodemic, right? They all conned us into thinking that they can mandate vaccines on us. They conned us into thinking that we have to wear face diapers. They conned us into locking ourselves in our house when they can't. And you know what? Out of all states, Ohio actually has an article already in the Constitution that's so broad, and someone else conned you to think that you need to pass a law just for that vaccine. You know what happens when you do that? You erase the one that's broad. You see how they work? Sneaky. Smart. Right? Sneaky. Because everyone's like, oh, there's this bill to stop the vaccine. Really? Well, why? You have a bill that says they can't make you take vaccines, they can't make you get health insurance, they can't make you wear masks, they can't make you walk on crutches. Why would you be specific? What does the Constitution say? Unless it's explicitly stated, all of the rights belong to you. So now someone convinced you that creating one direct one is the best way to go, which means it erases the broad one. You see, this is how they work. They come in with all the nice words. I mean, you would think LaRose is like, yeah, I'm like your friend. I'm a Republican. But by the way, I don't own any of your cyber infrastructure. I handed that over to the federal government. How do you feel knowing that all of Ohio.gov, which by the way crashed today, so weird, is all in the hands of the federal government? How do you feel about that? Where's the sovereignty in the state? So that means that the federal government can just log onto their computer and look at anything they want. How is that okay? He did that in 2019. See, I understand cyber infrastructure. I'm actually more qualified than all the Secretary of States you've had since 2000 combined to actually be Secretary of State. What do you know what the Secretary of State does? Keeps records, right? That's easy. I'm pretty good. You should see the amount of data I plow through every day. I've got hard drive. Maybe it looks a little bit disorganized, but it totally isn't, okay? But it's petabytes worth of data that I know where they are and they're organized. So that's one thing. It's literally a secretary. I have the glasses, so I'm already ready, right? So it's organizing the information. It's cyber infrastructure because we are in the years, of the age of information. Cyber infrastructure. I'm not the best coder. I mean, I will never admit what my capabilities are, But let's just say I'm okay with computers. Okay? I'm okay. So that doesn't mean that I'm going to create the internet, right? Obviously not. It's going to be Ohioans that went to school and studied, and I will hire them appropriately because guess what? I can actually ask them questions because I know the right questions to ask, unlike the other two candidates. We need to start sequestering our information as a state. We need to start monitoring our information as a state. We can't just have it open and unfettered to the federal government. I mean, what does that tell you? That's how communism works. I'm just in the new era, right? More upgraded, right? With computers. Back then it was just paper files. Now it's like, oh, your digital data is mine. And then earlier, some lady was talking about her ID and pictures of at the BMV. You were saying? You want me to tell you why that's happening? The BMV is a franchise, just like McDonald's. It's privatized. You can actually go and apply and open up a franchise to issue driver's licenses and stuff. And guess what happens when they're private? They also sell your data. That's why you can go on these weird websites like Rock the Vote, which, by the way, partner directly with the International Association of Voting. Okay, I didn't know that my state is in an international association of voting. And that's because no one's been paying attention. The media has failed you. The Republicans have failed you. The Democrats have failed you. Everybody and their mother has failed us, right? So I'm running. Why? I guess it's my redemption. I helped create this mess, right? Years ago, when this software was created, it was created as a weapon of war, right? We were supposed to use it to elect leaders in other countries so we can have bloodless wars. My job was to conduct cultural forensics, which is like a fancy way of saying figure out what they like and what they don't like, find out what scares them, and then amplify it so they take the product. Kind of like 9/11. Suddenly all of you were okay with having an NSA agent on the other side of your phone watching you in the bathroom, right? And you all mock and laugh about it. It's not funny, right? Because if you actually look at what they've done, it's atrocious. They have your AI profile online right now. For those of you that are in your 40s and 50s and were transitioned as Gen X into it, right, is massive. Those that are past the age of 50, they're kind of lucky. It's kind of confused. Do they like this or do they not like it? Is their grandkids touching the computer or is it really them? But for you that are in your 40s and 50s, it's bad. I can pull your profile and know how you're going to vote. I'll know how you'll respond to a crisis because I can look at all your emails, your texts. I know every deepest fear you have just from that. That should terrify every single one of you. And we need to rein that in, at least in Ohio. As Secretary of State, that's all I can do is one, rein in the cyber infrastructure and increase our information sovereignty as a state. Two, get rid of these machines. I mean, you can't have paper. Like, right? Like, come on, you guys. You know, when you listen to the excuses they tell you, why are they so hell-bent on the machine? Because they need your data. See, why aren't they campaigning anymore? Why should they? They could just buy your data. I know that neighborhood over there definitely votes for me. They like all this stuff on Facebook. They follow this. They're just like, vote red. So I'm good. I don't have to go there. Forget them. I don't need to go there because they're rabid leftists and all I have to do is throw money at them and they shut up and they just vote for me. So we're good there too. You see how that works? They're not even applying for the job anymore. So the basement Biden strategy, which is what Chelsea Clark is doing too, because she's not really running. She's just a placeholder to give you the illusion of choice. You guys actually have a choice this year. You can pick red or blue like you always have for the past 100 years, or you can pick someone completely different. I think we had that choice a long time ago. You know what I love about President Trump when people say he walked down the escalator and no. You know what his favorite statement, my favorite statement that he said was, well, I ran as a Republican. Republican voters are, what did he say? Stupid. Why? Because they just go along with it because, you know, they just don't want what the left has to offer. So they'll just drive off the cliff with the right. And that's the problem. All they have to do is invoke the word Jesus, talk about abortion, right? And lowering taxes. And everyone's like, here's my money, take my vote, right? And they do none of that. None of that. As Secretary of State, as far as abortion is concerned, there will be any time, anywhere, any place in the jurisdiction that I have, any casual abortion clinic ever. Because it's not about women's rights. It's about, selling baby parts. Okay? Let's be straight. Okay? It's a business, and it's a very lucrative one. Oh, what about the people that were raped? That's a medical decision. See, you're in the hospital, you get a rape kit, you sit down with your doctor, and you get whatever procedure you find fit with your doctor and with your conscience. Having a Planned Parenthood on the corner is not about that. It's about selling baby parts, okay? This is why they increase promiscuity, okay? That's the reason. I hear people talking about guns. I'm Secretary of State. I'll probably say, let's open up more gun shops. But the problem that we have with guns is not about checks and red flag laws. Those are stupid. It's society as a whole. As society, we have absolutely no value to life. We have devalued human beings online, let alone in person. Babies are just cells, right? But if you kill a bacteria from Venus, oh my gosh, you just murdered an alien life form. Well, you go to jail. So, you have to think about it. It's a bigger problem. It's a systemic issue in society. Not only that, I've been writing about it for years. They're coming after our 14-year-olds to, donate their organs. And 14-year-olds don't know what lunch table they're sitting at in high school. They're going to know that they want to donate their organs, right? Okay, so these are not only that, we have lawmakers. This actually happened in Oregon a couple of years ago, where they're passing laws to starve mentally ill patients so they die faster, like legit. And then they have these euthanasia things. First, they started with, it's only for like the terminally ill cancer people, no big deal. And then they expanded. Oh, if you're like really depressed and you're 23 and you can't shake it off, you could go kill yourself too, and we'll assist you. This is the value of life we have. Absolutely zero. And then they want to talk about gun control. So I'm like, all right, let's take all the guns, right? Then what? Knives. Let's take that. We'll have a whole department of kitchenware so that we stop people from killing each other. I mean, it sounds ridiculous. And this is the problem we have. People tune out. They don't want to talk. And for me, the left is calling me a right-wing conspiracy theorist. I'm like, and then the right calls me a lefty, and I'm like, see, that's the thing. They don't understand. We need the lefties, and the lefty needs us too, right? They need the left, they need the right. We need to be together because we complement each other. And in the state of Ohio, we will come together. We will eradicate these machines because I want every voice to be heard. The redistricting doesn't favor anyone but the parties, right? Nobody but the party. I'm in the same district as someone in the outskirts of Akron, Ohio. Tell me why downtown Cleveland is with Akron, Ohio. Like, they don't have the same. I go there to buy cigarettes because they're cheaper. Okay? We have no commonalities. Okay? Our cigarettes are like $20 a carton cheaper. Okay? No commonalities. So what we need to do is have appropriate redistricting. And I say this because, like, for example, I live in Cuyahoga County. There's nice areas, like, where Gonzalez dropped the ball, took everybody's money, and then he went in and impeached President Trump anyway, right? That one. Then we have East Cleveland and downtown Cleveland, where I'm at. And then you think, we have money as a state. Why are they in this state? Right? Oh, because they're just, leftists. No. Because they keep saying they're going to do programs. What do we know about charities and, I don't know, these 501c3? They're all money laundering operations. So when I hear that, I'm like, oh, so someone needs to launder some more money into an impoverished neighborhood to make one pretty building where 5 people will come in and, oh, look, we fixed the problem. No, we need them to be heard. Our Cleveland Police Department, I see them every day. They literally patrol in my building because I live in the terminal tower. Their apartments are kind of cheap, but it's very safe. And the police officers there, high turnover. They have people coming in from places like Iowa to get big city experience, and then they roll out after 8 months. The pay is low, and they're completely disconnected. What we should be doing is going into our own communities and training people of the communities to serve their communities, right? And paying them appropriately. But look at the type of mayors they're voting. See, the elections don't just focus on the president. So when I hear, oh, do you think Trump won? Yeah, I did. By 120 million votes, if you ask me. I'm telling you that fact, and you'll see that will be true. I'm very rarely wrong. I don't know whose papers these are, but they're distracting me, so I'm just gonna I don't do notes. I'm a walking Google. So, that was so distracting looking at the numbers. All right. So, another thing that the Secretary of State, you guys, does, aside from managing papers and cyber infrastructure and executing elections, is managing small businesses. I'm a small business owner. I know a lot of you are here too. The one thing we don't have is help, right? We go there, they give you the forms, and then they tell you, yeah, just go hire someone. You do something wrong, you're screwed. Same thing with elections, right? I have a campaign full of just moms, dads, retirees, single moms, single dads, right? No one explains anything. You're supposed to figure it out. And then if you make a mistake, it's too bad. This is how they stymie our voices. I promise you, as Secretary of State, I will create the foundation for all of you to run, because you should be in your communities. And the way I'm going to do it is by eliminating the ability of any corporate funding of any candidate in the state of Ohio. It's dead. That is the one thing we're going to do. And I know the GOP and the DNC they're going all in. This morning, actually, we received a letter, and Wexner, the Epstein Network, reached out to the GOP, and they sent a scathing complaint to my campaign manager because a couple people who donated online, who don't take cash donations, didn't put their profession. So it's a violation, apparently. I know. We know it's stupid. In court, it's going to be like, this is retarded. They asked for it. They didn't want to put it in the store. But the thing is, look at how far they're going. And look who's coming for me. This isn't an average protester. This is the head of the ICC, right? He works at Ohio State University. He's not some random guy on the street. When you can see who my enemies are, then you see exactly where they stand. And that's with the people. And so it's extremely frustrating that all my campaign money has been spent on lawsuits to pave the way for independence. I'm at the Supreme Court Friday. They were supposed to respond to my case. I asked 2 simple questions. I should have the right to have poll watchers, poll observers in there. And I'd like to observe the elections and the count, and I should be allowed to watch it count in the box. They haven't responded. It's Wednesday. The answer should have been on Friday. And I know why. Because, my job was game theory. That's basically what it is. It's trying to put your opponent in a box where whatever choice they made is still win. So I've already won, right? They just don't know it yet. People don't know it yet, right? I've already won. Maybe not the election, right? But I've won for the people. And that's what matters, regardless of what happens, okay? And if I can win, I'm just going to tell you, we could see the Chinese wall, right, from SAVE. That would be the biggest middle finger to the establishment, and it will be seen from like universes and nebulas far light years away. No one has ever in the history of the United States unseated an incumbent with an independent. And that would send shockwaves throughout the whole United States. And Ohio, here's where we had our first stolen election, right? 2004, they got caught, right? With Karl Rove and all those guys down in Tennessee blowing up things. Kind of reminds you of Christmas 2020. Remember the data center? And then the guy died strangely in a plane crash. Maybe he's somewhere drinking Mai Tais, or maybe he's dead. So then the case just went away, right? And then we all forgot about it, even though there were congressional testimony about cheating, right? And suddenly now it's all about Trump, and it's like, so let's just jump from 2004 to 2020 and just pretend none of that ever happened, right? So let's just ignore all those years. So hopefully we can stop it. And I promise you, the one thing that I do is fight. I have been fighting, even outside of the public eye, for people that probably even spit on me while I was fighting for them. But that's what service is, right? Just like our military. They fight for us even if we spit on them so that we can stand on the ground that we can free. And that's what statesmen and women do. They fight for the people even if they don't like it. So hopefully I can get your vote. If you guys have any questions, because I think I went over. Let's go.
Do you have any questions?
Any questions?
Wow, you covered it all.
Oh, right there.
I like. You got a bit more detail about the connection between Rose, Ohio, Jobs for Ohio.
Oh yeah. Thank you. I'm going to try to abolish Jobs Ohio. So quick one on that. let's go back in time to when LaRose became a legislator. His dad funded a company. You know, he has House LaRose Jobs. What is it? Ohio Liquor, right? You know that? House LaRose, biggest beverage distributor for liquor, alcohol, devil's drink, right? Whatever you want to call it. He seeded a private nonprofit called Jobs Ohio, which stands Jobs Ohio Beverage Services. While LaRose was in office, they made it part of legislation. Jobs Ohio is actually a partner with the World Economic Forum. Oh, and by the way, I forgot to say, Klaus Schwab endorses Frank LaRose. So I want you guys to pay attention. Oh, and one more thing, thank you for reminding me. So I've been telling people that he went to Ukraine to help select Zelensky, right? Someone asked him that question. He went on the defense. I've got the soundbite. He said, oh, I was just there visiting my sister working for the UN. But wasn't he on TV yesterday saying that he was part of the international Republican delegation? So someone's lying, because I have all that audio. But I can tell you one thing. I rigged the 2014 Ukraine election. I hired all the people that did it. So I already know what he did there. So he can say whatever he wants. I already know the truth. So it's a matter of national security for me to put it out there. But this is why he got caught lying. Because he doesn't want people to know the truth. So, other question?
Didn't he also go to Nicaragua?
Yeah. Oh, he went to Nigeria. Oh, and in 2020, in September, he went to Israel and told them we have the safest election. He leads the NASS, the DHS, what is it? The Disinfo campaign. He's the leader of that too. And on my Facebook, I put a bunch of screenshots, so you just don't take my word for it. I usually come with receipts. I don't just say things because it's not Christ-like.
If you take that mic and then you give that one with the cord, it'll be better. I can hear.
And I have a good sense of humor, so vote for me.
Yes.
I'm super fun. Don't ask me for jokes, though. I don't know any. Life's a joke.
I just wanted to know what you could tell us about Mandy Grandjean, who is actually the person who does the election thing in the state, I believe. You know, she's with Eric. You know what Eric is.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Not only Eric, but the DHS Disinfo campaign. And Amanda Grandjean actually works for the law firm that supposedly was contesting my signatures. She's a rabid lefty. You know, she's the one that actually encouraged the Board of Elections, the county Board of Elections, to violate the law and dismiss my petition, when legally they have no right to do that. You know, when I'm Secretary of State, we're going to revisit that issue in the court of law, because they can't have that seat doing that. And when I'm Secretary of State, anybody who lost their job, they're going to get all that back pay. Because in the state of Ohio, you got to uphold the Ohio State Constitution, and you just discriminate against them for, you know, exercising their Article 1, Section 21 right. So they'll get all that back. Watch me, I'll do it. They'll fight me, but I will do it. I will do it.
Get us out of Eric, right?
Oh my gosh, we're getting out of everything. There's going to be no federal government. It's going to be all Ohio. And we're going to create more jobs in Ohio, right? Because we're not going to have federal agents anymore.
She's the chairman right now, you realize? For 2 years, she's the chairman.
Well, she's a lot more than that. A lot more than that. You know, I like to keep it clean and use his track record. Yes.
Is there any way we'll ever see paper ballots, hand counts at the precinct level? I know why they're resistant to it, but it's the only way they have a free and fair election.
Yeah, they don't want that. They don't want that. And in fact, oh my gosh, it's this week, right? They're supposed to be mailed to me. I have anti-counterfeit technology ballots. The same technology in your dollar bill on a ballot. A company that I found 8 million ballots will cost us literally $2.5 million. That's a drop in the bucket from what we spend on DHS employees, machines, cyber infrastructure, you name it. And you know what we're going to do? Declare it a federal holiday, free transportation. Maybe we'll give you 2 days. You could come in the day before. Hot dogs, corner for the kids with crayons. Let's make it a party. And we'll have cameras on top, and we'll have 3 people counting the vote. So it could be like game day. Why just for the Browns? We should have county t-shirts, right? And watch it on a stream live. Because do they think that everyone is dumb, that they can't count? Oh, look, circle. What's that? Guess it's for that person. Fair enough. They act as if people can't count. And you know what? Georgia did a recount, if you guys remember. They have the same type of population. I think they're 7.9 million registered and we're 8 million registered. They did it in 10 days. So how come they keep complaining that we can't do it? Especially if we had the body count, right? Any other questions?
How do you feel about blockchain voter ID?
No.
Those people here probably.
No, yeah, no, I know that very well, actually. I'm very well versed in that. That's what Frank LaRose wants to bring here. That's why he got the Conic purchased, Vodem purchased Conic. Vodem then became No Inc., which are our co-pads, right? So I know this stuff. I'm very well versed. And the problem with blockchain is that if you bake in programmability, you can't detect it from the kickoff. And that's what they're trying to do with the cryptocurrency that they're trying to give the CBDC here. I've been screaming about it for like ages, synthetic homogeneous currency on my show. They will cheat and they will program, and then you will never know if they're cheating because it's code that you can't see. Yes.
I just wanted to back you up in the question of Tucker Carlson the other night had, 2 weeks ago, had a guy on from France, and he said, the guy said, we use only paper ballots, we count them right at closing time with 3 people, like you said.
Mm-hmm.
And Tucker, with a little suppressing a smile, said, how many days does it take you to get the final count? And the guy from France says, we have it by 11 p.m. that night.
Exactly.
So,
Exactly.
So does India, so does Britain, et cetera.
So do all of them. That's why I had a hard job, as you can see, convincing them to take our machines then. As you can see, France was never our target. It was people like, Iraq, Sudan, Ukraine. They'll do whatever we want because we own them. And that's very sad. There's signs in the back if you want yard signs. I would suggest to take 2 because they might rip down one of them. Yes.
So you do in Ohio have a contract with Conic?
Yes.
And so.
Well, not with Conic, with Vodem, with No Inc. They're out of Missouri, and No Inc. So it's Conic purchased by Vodem, and No Inc. getting Vodem. So it's the same stuff.
We have Conic.
Yes, the code is there. Yes.
So whole sheet is the software being used.
Yes.
So.
At the core of it. So they'll run you in circles because it's No Ink right now. I actually posted on my Facebook just so you guys see. They tell you they don't have modems and they don't connect to the internet. I just put up their minutes from like 2022 June where they're, how do I update? Oh, just log on to the internet and download this. And it's like, oh, I thought they weren't connected to the internet. See? And then they'll tell you, oh, it's not the voting machine. It's the poll pad, which does what? Connects to the machine. But then you think, how does the iPad connect to the machine if it has no modem or wireless capabilities? And it's like, oh, it's on a repeater. That's a fancy word for VPN, intranet. So I'm like, oh, that's great. We should ask how Equifax worked out for it, right? Their intranet worked out with the data leaks. What about the Office of Management and Budget? OMB got hacked on their intranet and their government, right? Let's talk about Target. How about Chase, right? If you're on the network, any network, you're hackable. That's all. Yes.
Okay, so I follow True the Vote, Greg Phillips.
Yes.
I know that Eugene Yu got arrested.
Yes.
Right? He's the CEO of Conic.
Right.
Hearing that, I emailed Frank LaRosa's office. Does Ohio use any Conic or poll cheat?
Right.
No.
Right. He doesn't because it's No Ink now.
Right.
So it's technically correct.
Then I just emailed them again. What about Vodem? They haven't responded to me.
Yeah, Vodem is a Cleveland company, and then that was purchased out by you see how they funnel? It's like a shell game. They 1, 2, 3. That's it. And they just buy each other. And then when you ask them, it's like I sent them a thing saying, hey, who's the escrow company that has the source code for the machines? Can you confirm if it's NCC Group? He comes later and says it's not NCC Group. Month later, NCC Group buys Iron Mountain officially. But I knew that they started the process 2 years ago. So it was like, see, they play word games. This is how dirty people do it. They're not transparent, right? Because technically the charge went through with Iron Mountain finalized, but they were already under NCC Group, which, by the way, is a foreign company. So I'm a little bit confused as to why we have a UK-based global company having access to our source code, which, by the way, LaRose admitted he's never seen, doesn't know where it is, and won't tell. But, he's got other problems. His whole server went down today. But then he told you after the fact that it was scheduled maintenance, right? After people were like, what's going on? We have nothing. He's like, oh, by the way, it's scheduled maintenance. Usually you put those in advance. I'm not a specialist and I suck at timeliness, but yeah. Yes. Oh, yeah. That's exactly great. Like Yoast. Okay, I'm going to be nice. But I saw Yoast's young man who spoke for him, and he's like, we held the drug companies accountable. We sued them for $808 million. And everyone's like, yay. And I was like, oh my God, that's such BS. Because here's how it happens. It's like the Hunter Biden companies too. It's Pfizer 1, 2, 3, 4. So what he did was target Pfizer for. They went bankrupt. All he got was $808 million, which is a drop in the bucket for Pfizer. That's like what, an hour's worth of work? And then they just went bankrupt and they moved all their stuff to Pfizer too. That's how Hunter Biden did all his stuff, funneling money too. So, and I also have to say that I'm kind of shocked, that it's happening in Ohio. It's really sad because Ohio was called the heart of America. Now it's called Find It Here. I guess maybe it's, hey, it used to be the heart of America. Now let's find our spine back, America, here, because it's really sad. Just looking like the lady that was arrested from Strongsville. She had that company EAC selling children. That happened under Houston and LaRose's watch and all these Secretary of State. She's selling babies and making profit. Turns out her son was the FBI, investigated it for her. She got only 3 months. And he got a promotion too, so that was weird. Really weird. But this is the problem. We have businesses in our state that are doing business that should not be operating here, right? We have constitutions, we have laws, right? And they should be straight. And another thing, have you ever looked up a business? How do you know if you're looking at the business or a shell corporation? Because if you look up Vodem, there's a Nigerian Vodem too. You're like, wait a minute, what? And it's literally from Nigeria. Someone said the name, and I was like, oh, it's Nigerian. He's like, how do you know? And I was like, oh, yeah, I've been there too. So know that language very well. It turns out it was Nigerian. And the thing is, we don't get proper identifications of these companies. We don't know what's foreign and what's not, because if it's in Delaware, it's considered foreign, right? So we need to fix that up. And as Secretary of State, I'll do it. I mean, I'm more than capable. The thing is, we're going to have to do this old school, though. Yeah, we're going to have to do it old school. It's got to be word of mouth. They won't even see us coming. Oh, and by the way, President Trump is coming on November 7th, just so you know. Yeah, it's his last rally in Ohio, the day before the elections in Dayton. So that'll be fun. Yes, it will be amazing. So everyone get out to vote on November 8th, right? Because the sooner you go, you give them metrics to tweak the algorithms. Yeah, they already count. I know. You should write to him and ask him to. That's what you should do. You should write to him and say, well, he didn't endorse LaRose last time, so that was fun. He went with the 2 judges that said, oh, we just want to throw her case out because we don't like her affidavit. It was the most ridiculous thing I've ever seen. I mean, it's a banana republic, and I'm pretty outspoken, but I'm very transparent. Very. Sometimes we'll fall. But it's necessary. Yeah, no, it's necessary. There's a time and place for everything. There's a time and place to play the 2.4 kids in the white picket fence, a time to play the liberal card. There's a time to play you know what, I'm so tired of this. Let's turn all this off and let's just start all over. Let's go. And that's the time. This is where Ohio is right now. And we need that. We need no more pretentious stuff. Any other questions?
I'm going to actually cut off the questions because we're
good.
At 9:30.
We're like, I was I should sing. And next year, everyone start running. We already paved the way. As independents, just go. Get your friends and go.
Ladies and gentlemen, before you take off, there are signs, yard signs for all candidates.
Take 2.
Yes, take 2. And then the donation jars are for the farm because they have graciously let us use this venue and have been so kind with their staffing and everything. Please consider donating so that we can continue to have these wonderful meetings. And I pray that you guys will say what in here and please see you guys all the time. Hey! You can give me a second before I Thank you, Lord Jesus, for this time. I pray, God, that you will that everybody can safe. I pray that the election will be done according to your will. And we thank you for everybody that's come here tonight. And we give you all the praise and all the glory. In Jesus' name, amen.
In the parking lot, right there behind the Scott on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are you glad it's over? Well, it was.
How do we turn this thing off?
Great meeting you. I have to sign.